Motorsport Radio.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Ray from the Kawasaki Racing Team.
Hi, this is Nick Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Jamie Chadwick.
Hey everyone, I'm Bradley Smith.
Hi, I'm Joan Zarco.
Hi, I'm Bradley Wright.
Hi, I'm Seb Morris.
Hi, I'm Dan Linfoot from Honda Racing, British Superbike team, and this is Motorsport Radio.
Hello and welcome to another live touring car talk here on Motorsport Radio. My name is Lester and we are back and we are live here on Motorsport Radio. It is hashtag touring car talk, and on last week's show we talked quite a lot about BTCC. This week we're going to talk quite a lot about TCR UK, amongst other TCR series, and that's because we talk about not just the British Touring Car Championship, as good as it is, even though it's over, but because we are touring car talk, we don't discriminate or show any prejudice. That's for you to do. We will talk about absolutely all the types of touring cars, especially this time of the year when there is lots of different types of touring cars going on. And joining us tonight, once again, just like last week, on the show, please welcome, it's Mr. Phil Kinch. Hello, Phil.
Good evening, sir. How are we?
Very well. How are you?
I cannot complain. There is a rather important event I'm looking to enjoy tomorrow, but we'll deal with that one later. Otherwise, I'm in a really good mood, actually. I'm looking forward to this evening's show, show number 3 live. They couldn't keep us away. They let us come back, haven't they, Exactly. We seem to be doing well.
I think you've just jinxed it. Shame. Anyway, and also joining us on the show tonight from the Checkered Flag website, as is Phil Kinch, it is Mr. Stuart Richards. Hello there, Stuart.
Good evening, Lester. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. It's good to see you back once again in front of the old underground tube. I keep getting that wrong. Tube map.
It's all good. No matter how you say it, it's all right.
I'm sure there's some aficionados somewhere that be raging if you call it an underground map. It's tube, actually.
Right.
Tube. So, hi, Dan.
They'll probably get more angry over the touring cars,
Nah. Well, if talking about BTCC in a TCR setting might upset you, then you probably should look away now or tune out, because we're going to be doing both this evening. And on the show tonight, we have a fantastic, wonderful interview with the TCR UK media coordinator and occasional commentator for TCR Europe and TCR, various different things. He's known as Mr. TCR from now on because he does so much. Not Mr. Phil Kinch. Mark James is coming up on the show a bit later on. We've got a full half hour with him to discuss maybe who might be winning this week's championship. Will Dan Lloyd do the business in TCR UK at Donington Park, or will it be somebody else? And also what he thinks about the first season in TCR UK. And tonight's I suppose we've got a big debate. Well, we were debating on whether to have 2 big debates, and we decided to probably, on the balance of things, have 2 big debates. The first big debate we'll get onto is who will become the first ever TCR UK champion. Will it be Ollie Taylor or Dan Lloyd? Answers in the comments box below, because we're live. We'll read out all the good ones, all the clean ones, and if you don't even have to agree with anything that we're talking about tonight. We welcome disagreement within reason, because it I don't know, it just adds something, doesn't it? It makes things a bit more feisty, I think, if you've got someone taking on the TCR guru and telling him why he's wrong about the Super Touring era, for example. Which we will also...
Hang on, what blasphemy is this? Who's saying this? How dare they?
And we will talk a bit about the Super Touring event from 20 years ago at Bathurst. I understand it's been 20 years, Phil.
Has it?
Has it? I don't know.
Amazing, isn't it? 20 years ago.
Unbelievable. We will get to talking about what happened at Bathurst. If you are one of the Motorsport TV victims of its recent closure, then obviously the big news, the biggest gripe from its closure is that it happened just before Bathurst, which was not ideal. We will get on to talking less about that and the whinging and whining, but more about what happened in the actual race, because it was quite eventful. And also, a question that gets, I suppose a question that Mark James, I think we'll probably, we'll ask it after the interview, but Mark James coming up in a few minutes' time anyway. I won't, I think I was a bit premature with that second question.
Just a little bit, it will come. This time will come, don't worry. So we're organised, we've got it ready.
So I suppose we can start off anyway with TCR UK, as that's what we are talking about. Talk about the season so far, Phil. I mean, how did we actually get here? What situation are we in? And tell us what's going to happen this weekend, so I can go and put a bet on.
You can put a bet on. I like the sound of that. So yes, the first ever season of TCR UK, the newest championship, or one of the two new championships this year, as part of the TCR growing sort of global empire, I almost want to say, started back over Easter at Silverstone. I was there to see things get underway, to meet the various drivers and teams that were attending. We started off with a 13-car grid, and straight away Dan Lloyd stamped his authority on both races and taking pole position in qualifying as well. And it sort of set the scene for the following races during the year that Dan, aligned with West Coast Racing, one of the teams that's been in TCR since the beginning 4 years ago. Very experienced team, very experienced with their VW Golfs that they used last year. It set the pace and were sort of running away and winning races. And Dan was extending a very large championship lead. His closest challenger in the season has been Ollie Taylor, and a lot of this helped when Ollie made the swap from the older FK2 Honda to what is known as the FK7 Honda in TCR circles, the newer shape Honda at Brands Hatch, and he was able to start closing on Dan and start challenging him on track. We've then had the situation after Knockhill Brands. We were at Alton Park, sorry, not Alton Park, sorry, Castle Combe, we're skipping rounds already, where Ollie was much more on the pace. Balance of performance had kicked in, and the Volkswagens were all on a maximum 60 kilo weight. There was a controversial move for the lead of race one between Dan Lloyd and Ollie Taylor, and it was seen at the time as a standard touring car move. It was seen, but the stewards judged different, and Ollie Taylor took his first win of the season. So things started to close up from there, and then it was a simple case of that they were able to, he was able to start closing down Dan's lead with consistency as well. So the simple situation is now we've had Croft, where Dan Lloyd suffered his first retirement in race 2, and then from there it was a case of final rounds of the year, and suddenly we're closing in on a championship fight that we weren't expecting to happen. Dan Lloyd ideally should have had the championship sewn up by now. However, it's actually the case that there's a 31-point difference between the two. And
I should point out as well, that's not actually Dan Lloyd and Ollie Taylor in the background that you can hear scrapping amongst each other.
Unfortunately, the dogs, they always say in television, never work with children and pets. Unfortunately, the dogs have decided to play. They're normally quite well behaved when I hide away in the front room to do this live, so they've jinxed me. I may just disappear in a few minutes to go and chastise.
You're a very naughty boy!
Yes, exactly. So yes, the situation is, like I say, Dan's dominated the season, and it has been the case that Ollie Taylor is actually now challenging him. He's through consistency, through taking his win at Castle Combe, adapting to the new Honda, and pushing very, very hard to close down the gap. So yes, it is Dan Lloyd, who a lot of BTCC fans watching will know that he's driven for BTC Norlin this year in the championship and took his first win at Croft. In TCR UK, he's taken a lot more wins and he's been more successful. Whereas Ollie Taylor with Pyro Motorsport, another team that BTCC fans will know from the support series, they've really got to grips with the new Honda, both with having Ollie Taylor on all year. They had Ash Sutton make a guest appearance at Alton Park, where he utterly decimated the field, to be honest. He sort of completely obliterated everyone, and Finlay Crocker has had his first season in a brand new car after campaigning the older Honda internationally. So we're in a situation, we've got two great drivers going head to head. The title has gone to the last round, the last two races. Admittedly, there's a 31-point gap, but when you take into consideration that with pole position and the two race wins, you've got a total of 91 points still left to score. So it is still quite open, although the advantage is with Dan.
At the moment, 433 points is the standings at the moment. Ollie Taylor on 402 points in second, as Phil said. And, all to play for this weekend. It's not quite so clear-cut for Dan Lloyd. And as you say, he might be of the opinion that he should have sewn things up by now, but... not quite.
I think it would be the case, and yes, Dan is hoping, like I say, to become the first TCR UK champion. As is Ollie. They're both deserving drivers. Really, they've both done their best. Dan has been the dominating driver of the year. Ollie, you could sort of say, has been the underdog and been trying to catch points where he can and learning the car, and he's done a fantastic job with it at the same time.
Okay, well, we will actually go and get I suppose it's all good and well us talking about TCR and our opinions about what we think about various things. But what does the TCR UK media coordinator think about all of this? Well, we caught up with Mr. Mark James yesterday because he was busy this evening to not come on the show live. But we caught up with him yesterday, and here are his thoughts about everything from Dan Lloyd, TCR UK, he even mentions BTCC as well, and what he thought about the season so far in TCR UK, and maybe what might be happening in the future.
So, as a special preview, this weekend we have the final round of the TCR UK series. The first season of the series is coming to an end, and it's taking place at Donington Park. And as part of the preview this evening, we're speaking to the TCR UK media coordinator. We're talking to Mark James. Good evening, Mark.
Hello, Phil. Hello, Lester.
Hello. Welcome to Touring Car Talk.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Not a problem. We're going to have a chat, as I was saying, with Mark about TCR UK. Also going to have a quick mention of TCR Europe and also WTCR and the TCR phenomenon worldwide as we start. So, keeping on track, first of all, Mark, and a series you're very well involved in. So, first of all, how does it feel to reach the final weekend of the first season of TCR UK? We finally made it here.
It seems quite odd. Jen Maratzing, who's the championship manager, sent out all the documentation to the teams yesterday and said it hardly seems like yesterday that we were at Silverstone for the first round, or even before that at the sort of the series launch at Silverstone. And it really doesn't seem like 6 months. And we've whizzed through. I've also been commentating on TCR Europe, and so fitting in the 6 rounds of UK, 6 rounds of Europe, and then back-to-back weekends. We've reached the end of TCR UK this weekend, and then the following weekend in Barcelona, it's the end of TCR Europe. So for me, where did 2018 go?
I'll be honest, I completely agree. I'm sort of sitting here thinking it's October, and I remember being at Silverstone back at Easter on a very cold and windy weekend thinking, wow, this is the start of it, and suddenly here we are reaching the end. So no, I completely agree, along with all the other TCR action we've been watching as well. So as a lot of people may know or may not know if they're not regular viewers of TCR UK, the championship itself has come to the final round. It comes down to 2 men, which is obviously Daniel Lloyd, who's driving for West Coast Racing, and Ollie Taylor, who's driving for Pyro Motorsport. It's not often. I know something we've discussed sort of on previous shows about sort of championships with gimmicks and how you get to the last race and the title being sold in the last race of the year. This happens, and obviously there's been the various twists and turns along the way. How does it feel to get to this point, with knowing that we're going to have a champion crowned on the final day?
Well, no gimmicks, nothing going on behind the scenes. It is what it is. We didn't think, let's be honest, that we'd be in this situation because Dan had that amazing run of victories in the first half of the season, and it's not kind of worked out for him in the second half of the season. So he had the 6 wins straight off the bat, together with the pole position, so he took maximum points from the first 3 rounds. And then Ollie won at Castle Combe in that sort of controversial last lap incident where they came together and Dan was penalised for it. Then we had the situation at Alton Park where we had Ash Sutton come in, win both races. Then at Croft, you had the situation where Andreas Beckmann switched to the Honda and won first time out in the car. And in the second race, Ollie Taylor took his second victory of the year, a DNF for Dan, which is very unusual for West Coast Racing. So we're at the situation now where the two of them are 31 points apart with a possible 91 up for grabs at Donington. So whichever driver takes it, whether it's Dan with his 7 victories or Ollie with 2 victories and a string of really consistent podium finishes, I think we have a worthy champion that'll be crowned on Sunday.
And I suppose the one question on everyone's lips is obviously, who would we like to see win? We'd like to see Dan win. We've, like I say, a string of victories he's worked hard for all year, or Ollie coming up as the underdog and fighting back. Do you have a personal choice? Are you happy to see either win?
That's like asking me to choose my favourite child, isn't it?
Okay.
No, it's. I would be more than happy to see either of the drivers win it for different reasons. Obviously, Dan, very, very professional, experienced at TCR international level, driving for West Coast Racing, who've competed in not 1 but 2 TCR championships this year. They've already secured the team's title. They've had a string of podiums with Andreas and with Jessica. And then you look at Ollie, who's come into TCR for the first time. Very much a steep learning curve for him. Made the switch from the FK2 Honda to the FK7 during the year. So, I mean, whichever driver gets it, they'll have won it on merit. And really, I don't have a favourite. I would be delighted for either driver.
And as would we as well, to be honest, like I say, and everyone who has competed this year has had to get used to TCR machinery. Like you say, Dan's had a bit of experience from his time last year in TCR International. And it also brings to light as well, with regards to having people like Dan, West Coast Racing taking part. They've got the experience, everyone's sort of playing catch up as well. And it has been, I think it's safe to say, a very good job done by everyone, Pyro at Verizon, etc., as they get used to the cars, understanding them, because the racing hasn't been affected in any way. As far as I've seen, the TCR racing we've had in the UK has been the same same exciting spectacle that we've seen, in TCR Europe and other domestic championships around the world.
I think it's a testament to the professionalism of the teams that we've got, that the vast majority of them didn't have any experience at TCR. They hit the ground running. You've got the likes of Maximum Motorsport with Stuart Lines, who started the year as a one-man band. Carl Swift very sensibly joined him so that they were running the 2 Cupras as a single entity, as it were. And the really frustrating thing is talking to Carl. Obviously, he's back with us for Donington after missing Croft because of the accident at Alton Park. But they'd brought an engineer over from Cupra Racing for Alton, and both cars made quite steady progress over the course of the weekend. Stuart was really quick, Carl was really quick. They were on course for their best result, and then in race 1 you saw Carl go off. In race 2 you saw the contact between Dan Lloyd and Stuart. So frustration, but they know they're heading in the right direction, and that's the positive for the teams that aren't experienced at TCR and are learning every time they go out on track with the cars.
And part of, again, like I say, there's been a lot of expectation as well for the first year of the series, both by the fans. We've had social media, other interested people from other series around the world, domestic and international. I remember recalling an interview from Jonathan Ashman earlier in the year, I think about halfway through the season, being asked about how the series had felt with its expectations. Had it met expectations? Was it looking, is TCR UK themselves looking to see where they are and understanding, yes, this is what we've got, this is where we expect to be? How has that changed since? Because obviously we've had fluctuating grids due to, like you say, big accidents, cars being repaired, drivers struggling with budgets, etc. How do things look now as we get towards the end of the season?
Quite a difficult question to answer, in that for us it was a clean sheet of paper, and you've seen other TCR championships around the world launch over the last few years. Germany is the one that's been quoted to us, where they launched with, 20 cars, and they were at 44 in year 2, and they've now settled back to the upper 20s. I think when you look at any TCR championship launch, then there are bound to be question marks over the size of the grids, because TCR is new. The teams have to invest in buying the cars. There are now cars in the UK, which means that, fingers crossed, we've got a good platform to build on for year 2. But the 2 things that we said we would deliver at the beginning of the year, we have done, to the astonishment of some people, but to the great satisfaction of others, like me. where we've delivered, or we will have delivered, 7 race meetings, 14 races, and from my side of things, we'll have delivered the whole social media, the live streaming, and that can only be good for next year. We can build on what we've already done.
So, and as you say, you know, a lot has been expected. You guys have delivered it. I personally feel, and a lot of fans have agreed, you know, a really good spectacle. Now, with TCR UK being currently the newest championship in operation, you know, the TCR spectacle itself worldwide is growing. There's already been quite a bit of news with TCR Australia being announced a little while ago, and also this year we've had the FIA World Touring Car Cup, or WTCR, come into effect for a 2-year period currently, and TCR Europe itself has changed from a 1 weekend event as a cup to a 7 series event. So, with regards to that, how do you think, you know, the worldwide expansion of TCR itself, how can you see that improving? What's the secret behind it? How does it work so well?
I think you've got to go back to the very beginning. The reason why Marcello Lotti came up with the concept of TCR, which was that he felt that, I suppose in many ways, touring car racing has lost its way in certain markets, where, you know, you go back to the 90s and you could compete with the same car in however many championships around the world, and that had largely been lost. And so he wanted to get back to one rule set, one set of cars that you could take anywhere in the world, and this pyramid. I remember writing the first ever press release about TCR when it was called TC3, and it was this whole pyramid of national, regional and international championships that any one car could enter. And we've done that, and I think even if you asked Marcello, he'd be the first to say that he would never have dreamt that 3 years after launch, the World Cup, the World Championship, had adopted TCR regulations, that we'd have something like 30 championships around the world, with more looking to come in. Yes, you've mentioned Australia. TCR Korea has already launched this year. Obviously, Hyundai as a domestic manufacturer with them, so it's important. There have been all sorts of stories about TCR Japan launching. There are a couple of others in the pipeline, so that you know, we will see more TCR championships grow up over the coming years, and also new manufacturers, new brands coming in. We're already at 14. The Fiat Tipo TCR is the latest of them, but there are other manufacturers, other brands looking to come into TCR because they can see what we've already done and where we're going.
So again, like I say, not just the series growth, obviously, like I said, with TCR Korea, you know, getting underway this year, as well as obviously TCR UK, TCR Australia, being a series getting underway next year. It's also the manufacturers as well joining in, having a go. The Fiat Tipo we've heard about, and other manufacturers taking part as well. So the whole TCR concept is growing, considering I believe we're in year 4, I think it is now, if the memory serves. Not only that, like I say, the other big addition we've had is WTCR. Now, how do you feel that has affected the growth of the TCR concept worldwide? Because obviously now there is a World Cup in effect taking place, with arguably the best touring car drivers and the top touring car teams taking part. What part do you feel that's played in the expansion of TCR this year?
Personally speaking, I think it's massive, because we've tried to explain, certainly from the UK perspective, we've tried to explain to teams and to drivers that TCR is a journey, not a destination. So you might start off in TCR UK. If you have a talented driver, you can take them from UK to Europe, to one of the other European championships. You can compete in the Middle East. You could go to Australia over the winter if you wanted, depending on where your sponsors are from. But now they can go all the way up to World Championship level. It's a World Cup, obviously, because it's not a manufacturer-led championship, but you can go all the way up to World Championship level, and then your driver can measure themselves at exactly what we were saying earlier at the pyramid, the national, the regional, and now the international world level. So if you've got someone like, I don't know, Dan Lloyd, Ash Sutton, any number of BTCC drivers, they can measure themselves against the best in Europe and now the best in the world.
And the prime example there, if we reference something else we speak on the programme this evening, is obviously Gordon Shedden has had a really good weekend at Wuhan in China, where he's had a podium finish, took third place in race 1, and then went on to actually win race 3 from pole. So, and I know from personal experience over the weekend, looking at social media, that was a very, very popular win for the Scotsman, and also well received by the fans as well, that are obviously former British touring car fans that followed him there, and also TCR fans that are following him on the world stage against some of the guys like Yvonne Muller, Gabriele Tarquini, Ted Bjork, to name a few. There's also the sort of stage as well where, like you say, we've got quite a few British drivers involved. So Gordon Shedden, Rob Huff, and James Thompson for a while has been involved in WTCR this year. Josh Files and Reece Barr have been involved in TCR Europe as well. The British contingent, there doesn't seem to be many British drivers out there internationally having a go. There's obviously, we almost seem a bit outnumbered, I suppose you could say, by some of the other countries taking part. But it's the fact of, we've got some of the best guys in the world competing in these championships, competing for race wins, fighting for titles. Do you feel that's a boost for TCR UK, for example, having a UK-based TCR series, knowing that there is the ladder there for UK drivers to look to make the move up the steps?
Well, there's two elements to that question. One, we've obviously had a very strong touring car tradition in the UK with the BTCC. It's important for us to recognise, they've been going for 60 years. It's the number one touring car championship in the UK, and we keep saying, look, we're not a threat, we're not at the same level, we're a level below them, but TCR is very different. It's structured very differently, and as I say, it's a means by which drivers can go from the UK to Europe or to Germany or to wherever, and then ultimately up to the world. So it's and I'm sorry to keep banging on about the cliche, but it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
And we've already seen that with one of our drivers, Ollie Taylor, who's already competed at Monza, finished 10th in both races, so scored points. And Ollie and the team were delighted at the whole. The paddock, the ambience, this kind of the step up in level, and they can see the bigger picture. And I think others can as well. Talking to Carl Swift, when I rang him to do the quote for the press release about him coming back for Donington, Carl sees the bigger picture. And the fact that you're on the same tyres in the UK, on the Yokohamas, that you would be in Europe or at world level, that's a very much a level playing field, which I think maybe we struggle to get across at the beginning, because yes, the tyres are expensive, and we heard what the teams were telling us, but that means that they can compete on a level playing field with some of the best guys in the world, and we're already seeing one of our drivers, and I'm sure there'll be more to come, doing exactly that and moving up the pyramid.
And I must admit, from my point of view, having watched the TCR Europe races at Monza the other weekend, it was great seeing Ollie Taylor, getting mixed into the battles with people like Fabrizio Giovanardi. Let's be honest, one of the best touring car drivers in Europe, and a couple of BTCC titles to boot as well. Reece Barr getting involved, some of the regular TCR drivers all having a go with Ollie, and as you say, the feedback from Ollie over the weekend was he really enjoyed himself. It was a very hard-fought point in each race, but it's the fact if he was able to turn up with the same car, the same equipment, the same team, take on some of Europe's best and get really mixed into the action, which was good to see. And again, that also sort of adds to the point, as I was saying earlier, TCR Europe, for example, was a one-off event for Europe's best drivers to come and have a go at and try and win as a cup. This year, it's now a series. We've had 6 events out of 7 so far. How do you see that's worked out? Obviously, like I say, it's been a one-off event so far. It's now a series this year and offering a chance for the European drivers to, if they can't make the step up to WTCR, but they can make the step up from a domestic championship. How do you see that's worked out this year?
I think it's been a real success. I mean, I would say that I commentate on it.
Yeah.
But when you compare, you go back a few years and you look at the difference between WTCC and ETCC. The ETCC was dominated by the Eastern Europeans, so the likes of Petr Fulin, and the Macedonians, the Serbians, that sort of thing. You've now got a European championship which is really competitive. We're going into the final round with, I think it's 5 drivers mathematically in with a chance of the title. I think realistically it's going to come down between Mikel Azcona from Spain, the youngster, and Jean-Carl Venet, who dominated Monza. But as a result, the car was going to be really heavy. Dusan Borkovic, I think we all saw the video. I'm not going to get drawn into that. We saw what it was. And I think because of that, for one reason or another, I think Dusan has pretty much ruled himself out of contention. But, you know, mathematically, it's still possible for the three of them, and also for Attila Tashin, Danny Naj, still to be in there scrapping as well. So I think we're getting to a stage in the TCR Europe series where we've got a cracking battle in store in the final 2 rounds. I think people are looking at TCR Europe, maybe some of the WTCR competitors who may be a midfield and below at the moment in WTCR, may be looking at Europe as a credible alternative next year. And I don't think you could have said that about ETCC, for example.
And obviously, we're talking. We're coming to the end of this season for TCR Europe, WTCR, TCR UK this weekend. So I know a lot of thinking. Obviously, drivers, teams looking for sponsorship, for backing, and also from the fans as well. Sort of looking towards next year to understand what's happening. I believe it'll be the 5th year we're looking at of TCR competition. So to make it to 5 years, first of all, with this concept is obviously a landmark to reach. With regards to 2019, obviously, if you can't say anything, I can understand completely. So we'll ask the questions I know some of the fans are going to be asking. One question we had last week on the live Touring Car Show was, about having a UK round of WTCR. Now, is that something? I know it might not be something we see from WTCR. Obviously, we're waiting for calendars to be confirmed. Is that something maybe we could see from TCR Europe? Would they pay a visit to the UK shores, do you think, or?
I can't really comment for either championship because obviously WTCR is done by Eurosport Events. It's an FIA series. TCR Europe is promoted by a Portuguese organisation. We're very much in a supporting role. So if you look behind the scenes, it's very much the same team that used to work on TCR International. So the same race director, the same timing guys. It's me, the same media team, the same broadcast guys. And we've just switched from International to Europe. And the switch has been seamless, as you can imagine. You're not the first person to ask. You won't be the last. And personally, I would love to see TCR Europe do a round in the UK. Obviously, we run in Europe with GT Open. There is a GT Open round at Silverstone. Whether we team up with them is one question. And then the next question would be, would TCR UK then be one of the support races and also on the same bill? And I think that would be a win-win for everybody. But I think we're a few steps away from it happening. But let's just say things are going on behind the scenes, and we'll leave it at that.
You've actually answered the other question I was going to ask, which is, could we see TCR UK on the support bill? The reason for thinking behind that is because I know with TCR International over its 3-year run, it teamed up with a lot of the domestic championships if they were in the first or second year of running, which seemed to boost their profile as well, having an international round at the same circuit. So I know, for example, TCR Russia, TCR Germany, we had TCR International rounds there as a couple of examples, and it got a lot of interest. To be honest, seeing the photos as well, when you've got all of the various cars from both fields all parked up on the circuit, I think it was quite amazing because you had quite a few cars parked up there and looked really, really great. The UK fans, obviously, are going to be interested. I believe I've seen a question already so far in social media asking about next year. Do we have an idea yet of the 2019 calendar for TCR UK? Obviously, we've had 7 events this year were planned. Would there be any plans for expansion? We've had the one-day action at Alton Park, obviously for the various reasons of restriction, etc. Could we see any changes? How would TCR UK 2019 look so far?
I don't want to get drawn too much into it because we're at that stage now where the calendar is being finalised for next year.
Okay.
I think we're close to it coming out. But let's just say, hopefully, we've got a bit of a reputation for ourselves of doing things slightly differently, maybe shaking things up and not doing things maybe as people might expect. And that perhaps could be seen in next year's calendar. Or then again, it might not. I think we'll probably stay around the same number of events. Whether we go to the same circuits next year, I think that's currently being discussed.
Okay, and like I say, obviously, we'll look forward to that, when that's finalised and announced. And obviously, myself, I'll start planning to see what circuits I can visit, and also how many times the good wife will threaten divorce as well, as to how many I'm going to be at. Something else that's part of the TCR phenomenon is obviously the coverage. So TCR is based on having online coverage through YouTube, through the actual TCR Hub website itself as well. And obviously in the UK, a lot of the fans, again, thanks to the BTCC, etc. We're used to seeing live coverage on a TV channel as well as having it online. Another question, obviously, for 2019 is how is the broadcast package looking, the online package? Is that something that could change or stay the same? How do things look there as well?
The very first conversation I had with Jonathan about TCR UK was in a restaurant in Monza last year, and he said, what do we need to do in terms of live streaming or broadcast or whatever? And I said very firmly that we need to be live streaming. It's what people expect. And in fact, some of the TCR series that haven't live streamed, that's not gone down at all well with the fans, and I think they've had to rethink what they've done. From my point of view, and from a global fan's point of view, and I know you post links to TCR Italy, TCR China, TCR Russia on the Facebook page. When one of us has to watch all of the championships. So, for example, at the weekend, my colleagues were in China for WTCR, so I watched TCR Italy race 1, which was absolutely easy. My laptop was open, two screens. One had the live timing, one had the live feed. And even though it was Italian commentary, when you get an Italian commentator saying Stefanovski 5-second penalty track limits in English, I kind of worked out what was going on. So
exactly.
It's really easy to follow. And if you become a TCR fan, and I think I'm preaching to the converted, you are able to watch TCR racing pretty much throughout the year. And then once, obviously, Australia comes on stream, you've got Middle East going through the winter, you will be able to watch TCR pretty much all year round.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like I say, obviously, I try and share as much as I can in the various groups that I run. I take great pleasure in enjoying TCR Germany, I'll be honest, because yes, that's another series we have, apart from TCR Europe, TCR UK, WTCR, that has English commentary. Although there are times, I'll be honest, I've also enjoyed TCR Russia. I think it's been one of the most exciting series we've had racing out there. One final thing to sort of bring things to a close is obviously, we mentioned earlier, we talked about grid sizes and stuff for the championship. I think we had a maximum entry of about 14 cars at Brands earlier in the year, and then we were down to 7 cars at Croft on the grid, again due to repairs, damages, people struggling with budgets, etc. There's been various reasons it's happened this year. Do you expect a sort of form of growth for 2019? I'm not talking something like TCR Germany, where they sort of added 20 cars overnight, it's seen over the winter. But is it something you feel there could be more than the 12, sort of 13 cars we've had most of the year so far for next year?
I would have thought so. I mean, we've done what we said we were going to do, which was to deliver the 7 race weekends and also the live streaming and the social media and that sort of thing. We have to build on that now for year 2. And it'll be more important, I think, what happens in year 2 in a way than what happened in year 1, because we now need to see some growth. That said, I don't want to put any targets on it, because I'm sure that if we say we'll have, I don't know, pick a number, 24 cars on the grid, and we turn up at the first round with 22, then people will say we've missed our target. So I think we would be disappointed if we don't see a move forward in terms of grid numbers. I think people now know what TCR is, which wasn't the case 12 months ago. I think a lot of people were aware of TCR International, but didn't know where a TCR UK championship would fit into the great scheme of things. Here we are, as you say, we're in year 4 of TCR. We're now 600 plus, 700 plus cars, 30 plus championships, more to come. We've also expanded the social media offering, so you've now got the video magazine that I voice every month, wrapping up the various championships. So you mentioned Russia. So if you're not an avid watcher of TCR Russia, just by watching the half-hour video wrap-up, you'll know that Dmitry Bragin was on the verge of taking the title. He did at the last round at the weekend at Fort Grozny, so that will be in the next round, the next program at the beginning of November. So we're trying to make it as accessible as possible for people to watch the live streams, but also to catch up with TCR globally. And as I said, it's possible to watch TCR pretty much every weekend of the year. So if you're in America, which doesn't have a tradition of European-style touring car racing, once you've got the bug by watching Pirelli World Challenge or IMSA or whatever, you can then start watching UK, Germany, Italy, Russia, China, Thailand, Korea, Australia, and we could go on and on and on.
I could say pick a TCR series, any TCR series, and you can find it near enough anywhere online. As I said, this weekend we've got the TCR UK finale at Donington Park. We've got Ollie Taylor challenging Daniel Loyes for the first ever TCR UK title, to become the first ever title winner. You can, as we've spoken already during the interview, you can find all the information if you want to watch that online on YouTube and also on the TCR Hub website as well. There'll obviously be all the reports from the sites as to follow how things go with practice qualifying in both the races. And at the same time, as you'll find, it's not Mark, unfortunately, who does the commentating for TCR UK. That's Andy McEwen, who does just as good a job, actually. I think he's done quite well this year, coping with the various challenges he's had with the racing on track and everything. If you are going to the racing, like I say, I'll be there myself watching it live as a family day outing. I'm not sure how I've gotten away with this one, but I seem to. I'll be looking forward to catching up with some of the drivers, having met them at Silverstone myself at the start of the year and seeing how things have progressed. Mark, I can presume you're obviously going to be there in a very hard-working fashion, keeping everything running as smoothly as possible as you have done all year. And congratulations on a good job so far.
Thanks very much. I think you've probably been able to spot that my voice still hasn't recovered from when I was at Croft and had an absolute soaking on the Friday, getting the banners and the flags and everything back out. But no, it's been a really good year. I've got to say a huge thanks to, we only have a small team in TCR UK. Jen Maratzing has done a fantastic job as championship manager, keeping everything together. You mentioned the broadcast team, Andy, the commentator, Bryn Lucas, who's our front of camera man. I think I've really struck it lucky with those two. We have recommendations for the pair, and I'm pleased to say that they were absolutely spot on. They've done a great job for us. We hit the ground running at Silverstone. I think a number of people expected us to fail, wanted us to fail for whatever reason, but we haven't. We've delivered exactly what we said we were going to do. I think the year has been a success, certainly from our point of view, and we now need to build on that over the winter. But there is the small matter of the championship finale to go, and so we're looking forward to another good race weekend this weekend, and I'll see you there, Phil.
Brilliant. Mark, thank you very much for coming on Touring Car Talk this evening and speaking to us about all manner of things of TCR as well as TCR UK. And I look forward to seeing you at the weekend and enjoying a cracking set of races to see who comes out as champion.
Brilliant. See you there. Thanks very much.
Motorsport Radio.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Ray from the Kawasaki Racing Team.
Hi, this is Nick Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Jamie Chadwick.
Hey everyone, I'm Bradley Smith.
Hi, I'm Joan Zacco.
Hi, I'm Bradley Wright.
Hi, I'm Seb Morris.
Hi, I'm Dan Linfoot from Honda Racing, British Superbike team, and this is Motorsport Radio.
And that was Mark James, media coordinator for TCR UK. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Mark. That was a nice insight, I would say, Phil, about everything TCR UK. And your thoughts on I mean, coming away from that chat there, which was very insightful, especially as lots to unpack from that. I think we could spend the entire rest of the show just reacting to what he said, especially about things that might happen this weekend, things for next season that he might be teasing, and the question about whether TCR UK might be on or whether something else might be on the bill next year. There's things going on in the background, he said. Watch this space, that's all I'm saying. And also talk about which circuits TCR UK might be using in the future, not necessarily all the same ones as was this year, maybe. Somebody even suggested maybe we should go to Cadwell Park. What a good shout that is, I think.
I do like the idea of that, I must admit. Cadwell, I know, goes well for the bikes, but I think all equally, seeing the cars flying up the mountain, as I believe it's known, would be quite an interesting sight as well. So yeah, you never know. The conversation, like I was saying, as you've seen in the interview from yesterday with Mark, is that there could be some change. Obviously, we'll wait for the official calendar to come out, and once it's finalised and fully released, we'll have an idea of where TCR UK is going for its second season. And almost, to be honest, a point sort of there. A lot of people didn't think it was going to get to this point. It wasn't going to start in some cases. It wasn't going to happen. Silverstone happened, and then suddenly there were questions all through the year. The series, like Mark said, it's delivered. A lot of people have sort of questioned grid sizes and competitors backwards and forwards, drivers having guest appearances, etc. But this is all part of TCR and people getting to know it in the UK. Worldwide, it's already a known quantity and a given sort of performer of being able to show good classic touring car racing in cars that are as equal as they possibly can be. So in the UK, it's a case of, we were getting into the first season, we're going to have our first champion come Sunday evening. And it's looking interesting. So hopefully, there's quite a lot there that Mark's given as far as information is concerned. And it'll be interesting to see, how the winter is going to shape for TCR UK. And I'm also going to say the BTCC as well, because to be honest, we've got 2 top-line touring car series and several other, tin top series out there. The Mini Challenge, the VW Cup, Clio Cup, etc. There are lots of avenues now for drivers to consider going if they can't make that step up to the BTCC as a top line series. Even
as well, some people noticing as well just how good the Civic Cup is, which has been on the bill as well. Supporting the TCR UK as well, and that's been getting a lot of attention, rightly so, because in there's been I know it's the support, one of the many great support championships that the entire TCR UK package has.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going to give a shout to other series. We've had the Mazda MX-5 Cup that's been incredibly close.
And the amazing Formula Ford 1600. Sorry, I got to say that.
Yes, we'll throw those in as well. Yeah, at the end of the day, you've got a lot of single-make series that are supporting TCR UK, and whilst they've got a lot of larger numbers because they're already established championships, it is all good racing. And the aim at the end of the day, not only for TCR UK to establish itself on UK shores, but is also to give a good spectacle for the fans at a trackside, and also watching it on the live stream as well. So you're not only getting the UK series live, you're getting all the support series live through the BRSCC feeds at the same time. And again, you've got a good day's racing in front of you, lots of categories, lots of different types and makes of car racing, and just trying to give you the best spectacle they can. So you've got a great package there that has the definitely the room to develop and improve over the winter and into its second season.
Just want to say before we continue, hello and welcome. This is Touring Car Talk on Motorsport Radio. My name is Lester. We are live right now. It's a Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday.
Yes, it is. It's a Tuesday.
Unless you downloaded this show later on, in which case it's not a Tuesday. But if you're brand new to Motorsport Radio or Touring Car Talk, hello and welcome. A big hello to Josh Skelton, who's tuned in. Hello, Josh. Also, Mr. Andy McEwen as well, various touring car championships commentator as well. You will know him from various BRSCC club racing TV programs, TCR UK commentary, and other touring car commentaries, as well as Carl Swift. He's tuned in as well. Hello, good evening, Carl. Tune in, and Paul Turner, all amongst others, tune in to our third. Is it our third now? Touring Car Talk Live, because we have sort of tested doing this, and we pre-recorded it, and then it just turned out to be just easier to do it live because we did it as live and didn't want to do editing. Basically, that's why we're doing it live.
It is show number 3, and as far as I'm aware, apart from the slight dog intervention earlier, which you'll obviously hear if you're listening to the podcast later on, yes, I think we're doing pretty well. He says, fingers crossed.
Not bad.
Knock on wood, etc.
I think it adds something anyway, because we're able to interact and read people's comments. For example, might as well read them because they've been kind enough to tune in to the show and pay attention to us spamming their various Facebook groups. Phil. Actively promoting
we've ever had.
Yes,
I try my best.
Actively promoting it, but Christopher Gray been in touch. Hello, Chris. Tuned in also. He says TCR UK, presume, needs to make a massive step forward next year. He says the concept is great, but the racing this year has been dull. He says he'd rather watch the pickup truck championship. Well, Chris, we take your point on board. It's okay to watch both of those things. and more.
Yeah,
you don't have to choose between them.
Exactly, yeah. And I'll be honest, there are times, quite rightly, Chris has raised the point, there are times when the racing hasn't been as exciting as other TCR series have been around the world, WTCR, TCR Europe, etc. And part of that is, like we were saying earlier, discussing the two title protagonists. Dan Lloyd has a lot of experience in TCR cars and is racing with the most experienced team on the grid. So in that situation, as we've discussed in previous shows, but live and recorded, you've got the best team with the best driver doing the best he can, and he's leading the championship with a reduced points gap. But Stuart, obviously, from the British Touring Car side of things, you've been keeping an eye on Dan in the Norlin Hondas this year. What's your sort of general thoughts on how he's going to do this weekend?
Well, it's obviously, as you say, with his TCR experience and his start to the TCR year, he should be all right. I don't know whether recently in the British Touring Cars he's been focusing more on his TCR title battle instead of sort of like focusing on the weekends. But I imagine as a professional racing driver, you shouldn't really have to worry about things like that. But out of all the drivers, I think it's that thing again about whether you deserve a title. If you have, I know I have to bring it up. At the beginning of the year, he was unstoppable. I did watch the first race. Got to surprise you there, Phil. And, and it's his to lose at the end, if that's the right thing to say. Because Ollie Taylor, he may have done an absolutely fantastic job, but it has been after the VW has been nerfed by balance of performance things and certain incidents and issues. But that's motorsport, isn't it? And it's made it exciting instead of it just being Dan Lloyd, he's a champion after 5 races, and take it right to the end. It's all good.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, Dan's one of a couple of drivers that sort of focus on almost a dual campaign this year. So he's been getting a lot of front wheel drive experience, and obviously TCR cars are different to the NGTC cars to learn and drive and master. Yet, as we've seen, he's taken his win at Croft earlier in the year for BTC Norlin, and also with West Coast Racing, he's adapted really well to the VW Golf and been very successful there. So definitely going to be an interesting weekend ahead, I feel, as far as that's concerned. And you never know, even the weather could play a part as well, with potentially seeing some maybe wet races, possibly. We never know.
Ooh. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see, like you say, Phil, maybe how that might affect, if anything, how people go, what might happen, incidents in the race. Will anything other than the side-by-side action maybe decide what happens with the championship? All will be revealed. You can either go to Donington yourself and be part of history and witness the first ever TCR UK champion being crowned this weekend. I think it's £16 you found out, Phil, on the gate. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. So if you've been lucky enough to get early bird tickets, I believe it's £12. It's gone up to £16 on the gate. So again, essentially seen as a club racing weekend, but I wouldn't even call it that. I see no difference really in the championships that are there compared to other championships out there. So from what I saw at Silverstone, it was a good weekend of racing, and I'm expecting a good weekend here at Donington with some of the final rounds for the support series taking place as well. So if you are a touring car fan, if you are missing the BTCC, if you need a touring car fix of some description with live action, I would say give this a go and have a look at it. As we've said before on the show, you can watch TCR UK and BTCC. It's okay to watch.
Are you sure? Are we definitely allowed?
Yes. Well, I think it is, but then obviously I watch a lot of touring car racing anyway, so I'm sort of biased. What I was going to throw in is we've had a few announcements this week, just very quickly, of drivers that are returning back. Carl Swift, obviously, Carl Jr. this evening. Love to see you watching, sir. Carl's returning back to the series after a big accident at Alton Park that saw the Cupra damaged quite heavily. He's got the car back up and running, has had a shakedown, and will be returning for the final 2 races at Donington. Josh Price, who has driven for the BMR Subaru team earlier in British touring cars this year, he's had a couple of appearances in TCR UK at Brands Hatch and also at Knockhill as well, and did really well in the older Civic. He's back in the same Civic as well as he evaluates his 2019 options. And Alex Morgan, who was a popular addition at Brands Hatch He's coming back in the Renault Megane. It's in its first year of action. It's being developed. A lot of the development taking place actually in Germany, with Alex and several other drivers involved. Again, Alex is looking to sort of evaluate his options for what he's going to do next year. So the Renault Megane will be here back on UK shores. And as I understand it, we're looking potentially at a confirmed entry list being released tomorrow. So obviously keep an eye on social media.
Tomorrow
We'll be
morning?
sharing that.
Is it Wednesday?
It is Wednesday tomorrow. I wouldn't say tomorrow morning. I'd probably say towards the end of the day tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
I'll make sure I share that out with everyone who's interested in following. And then, it is literally countdown to Saturday and Sunday when the action gets underway.
Indeed, yes, and it'll be just as you were mentioning there about comings and goings, certain drivers and such. Be interesting to see from maybe a team's point of view, because we know that there has been a lot of, in TCR UK, a lot of interest from potential teams thinking maybe about doing a dual campaign. We know BTC already come out this week and saying that they are looking at doing a joint British Touring Car Championship and TCR UK role potentially, but that's not definitely been confirmed yet. I suppose it's subject to confirmation. But it'll be interesting to see what people like Stuart Lyons does as well. I know he's tuned in at the moment. Hello, good evening, Stuart. With his team, or if he might do anything at all, because the options are there. It might not even be him. It could be somebody else, maybe other new teams, maybe out from the left side, someone that we don't even think of.
Definitely. Like I say, BTC and Norlin have been very, very vocal on social media about looking to have a go next year. So again, we're not going to sort of speculate. We're talking about what we're seeing. But yes, there's been lots of visitors to the TCR UK paddock that have been mentioned throughout the year from various different championships in the UK that are very interested, and championships from outside of the UK who want to race on UK shores because, let's face it, as Mark said in the interview, the UK has a big touring car legacy to follow and to keep up with. So, there is a lot of interest. Interest doesn't always turn into entries. I feel, as I said earlier, it's going to be a very interesting winter. And obviously, if you've got drivers that aren't announced for British touring cars, the next thought's going to be, well, will they do TCR UK? What else will they do? So it's going to be a really interesting winter to see, drivers arranging budgets, signing up with teams, and seeing who's going to line up on the grid for the first weekend next year.
Right, question time then, Phil and Stuart.
Okay.
If you were a team manager of, let's say, a team, a generic random team, what would you run? Would you be in a TCR UK? Would you be in BTCC? What car would you potentially be running? If you are, say, in any TCR UK or TCR car, would it definitely be TCR UK, for example? I don't know. There's lots of options with the TCR world, I suppose. It's fairer to say it's more like a world, isn't it? Because it is.
Go on, Stuart, you go first.
Sorry to drop that one on you.
Well, obviously, me being the British Touring Car Championship fan, if I was a team owner, I'd obviously aim for there. But if I was building up towards the BTCC, I'd be in TCR UK or something like that.
Or would you do a joint campaign, maybe?
Ooh, yeah. It's going to make my decision even harder to choose what cars to go for.
Let's say you could just scrape through the sponsorship money to maybe do both if you wanted to. Would you do it?
Just about. Of course. If the news about where the Eurotech TBLs have gone to a new team, they've got the perfect cars in the old Honda Civic shape. That would be a perfect starter car for my team if I had one. Who to drive them? I'd have to choose. You obviously have all the drivers in your head that you want, like Tom Ingram, Colin Turkis, but you're never going to get those. It's going to have to someone from either one of the teams from lower down the field who's impressed you, or someone from the Clio Cup or from TCR UK. Or any free agents, you might have a look at Jake Hill. From the Clio Cup, you might look at James Dorlin, Max Coates, someone like that. From TCR UK, it's Ollie Taylor. He's obviously doing a fantastic job to be in the title fight. So on the BTCC side, I'll have the old shaped Civic with any driver who's been promoted. Might get lucky for top driver. I'm not like BMR when they got Turkington and Plato that one year. But TCR UK, I'm obviously not too familiar with the cars, and obviously balance of performance in that, so it could change around at any moment. But obviously, the best cars out there are the Volkswagen and the Honda Civic, the newer shaped Civic as well. So it'll have to be one of those cars. But out the top drivers, if I were to do a joint campaign, it'll have to be someone who's obviously, as I say, up and coming again. It's all the same names will pop up again.
Yeah.
So it's Phil will. Well, how about if we have Phil run my TCR side and I run the BTCC side?
Sold. Yeah, that's fine. I've got the lottery win waiting. It's not a problem. I've been ready for this announcement. So yes, I'm going to run Stuart's TCR UK team. What Stuart doesn't know is I'm also going to take it around Europe as well on weekends. We're not racing. We're just going to absolutely hammer the hell out of the cars.
and do a one-off Worlds event as well.
Oh yeah, we'll get a wild card entry in WTCR. We'll be flying.
Keep this short, Phil. I mean, I know you could list a 1,000 different people, but yeah, for you, same question then. What would you do, and who would you pick?
Okay, so I'll stick with Stuart. So a little bit sort of more of an expanded program. If I had the funds, then I'd do a dual campaign in both. Completely agree on the Honda Civic, although I'm also in British touring cars a fan of the motor-based Fords as well. Love the Ford RS. So if we go with that to start with, I'll pick two drivers. I am going to go with Jake Hill because I think he deserves drive.
Jake Hill, yes.
Absolutely think he's a worthy talent that needs to be back in a touring car, whichever championship you want to go with. And if I also had the chance, then I would also put this thing. Who else could I put in a car? I really want to steal Lewis Kent, to be honest, because I think he's a good upcoming talent in TCR UK. His granddad and his dad might disagree.
Yeah, fifth in the championship at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. So okay, so I'm going to steal Lewis just for just for this small exercise. I'm going to have a pair of pair of Ford Focus RSs for British touring cars for both Jake and Lewis. And in TCR, I'll be honest, I am drawn on that. I'd either have Hyundais or Vauxhalls because I'm an old-fashioned Vauxhall touring car fan. So I'd love a pair of Astras. I think they are a great little TCR car myself. And if I had the money, the sponsorship, and the team behind me, and Stuart's obviously going to provide all this for me to go and run for him, then thank you, sir. Then not only would we do TCR UK, we'd have a go at TCR Europe, possibly have a dip into TCR Germany, and even try and lobby for a wild card entry, like you say, in WTCR. If you've got the cars, you can race them everywhere. Let's just go and race them. Have fun every weekend. Drivers love seat time. So yeah, I'd nick Lewis for now. He's probably not going to talk to me now this weekend, and his granddad and his dad may have a few words, unfortunately, at Donington for me. But yeah, I'm going to nick Lewis, put Jake Hill in the other car. Great little pair together. Pair of Vauxhalls and TCR UK, pair of Fords and British touring cars, and we are literally going to rule the touring car world together with Stuart's team, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the journey, not the destination, is what Mark James of TCR Media Coordinator was keen to stress. You might find that in some brochures if you're a team boss, by the way. But yeah, why not? It is true. I mean, I didn't mean to mock, but yeah, it's... TCR, and I called it almost like a world of, like, what did I say? World of opportunity or something like that. And it really is, because if you've got a car, you're not just kind of stuck to race it in, for example, just the UK. You can, like Phil said, I mean, if you've got a couple of extra quid for the transport, take it to Germany or do a European thing with it, maybe. There's obviously customers who want to do that because they're doing exactly that. It seems like a very obvious thing to do. As just going back to what Mark was saying earlier on, and maybe he was right when he did say, because I was paying attention, that maybe touring cars has kind of lost its way in recent years, because we see this a lot in particularly like GT racing, for example. If a team buys or say invests in a car, they can obviously take that and do an endurance race in Abu Dhabi or wherever, a GT Asia series or wherever. And also you can race it in things like the British GT Championship as well, race it here at home. It just seems really obvious to do a similar sort of thing with touring cars as well. And it's absolutely amazing that it's taken until now to do it properly, I would say, and start that ladder. I know TCR isn't maybe where a lot of TCR supporters, Phil, want it to be at the moment. but it's there on potential, on terms of like the level of potential that it has, in that it's set up with, in that the future potential, not even future really, it's current opportunities. It's massive, just like Mark James said. It really is.
It is, and something. If you look back over the history of touring car racing, over the last sort of 10, 20 years, the last time you had something similar like this, where you could take a car and race it in other series, was when you had the Super 2000 regulations in place. So you're looking back to the 2-litre normally aspirated days, with the cars running in, the VTCC, the World Touring Car Championship as it was, up until around about 2010, 2011. You could race those cars almost anywhere, and before that, you go back to Super Touring, again, where regulations were similar, cars were as equal as they could be, but development budgets were high, and a lot of works teams were involved. So since then, we've got all manner of different regulations all around the world. As we've seen, in WTCC as it was, we had TC1 previously. You've got the NGTC regulations in the UK with BTCC. You had Super 2000 still being used by European Touring Car Cup. Australia obviously has the big V8 5-litre engines being used before they move to their new set of regulations in the next couple of years. So there's a lot of different regulations running out there that have been successful in their own right, but it's been up until now a very difficult situation to say, right, what series can I race in? Where can I get into this? How can I get into this? We've been lucky in the UK with support series like we say, Clio Cup, Mini Challenge, VW Cup, which has been a stepping stone, but it's a big leap from one of those cars into a 2-litre touring car. And in the ladder system that we've now got in the UK, TCR UK fits into that space below British touring cars. It's not a rival, it is a stepping stone. It's giving you a chance to get into a 2-litre touring car, understand how that works, and take that knowledge up to the next step, which is the biggest championship in the UK. So, and as we said, you can take the cars around the world in various different TCR series and compete there. So it's been a very difficult situation. There's been times when regulations have matched up, but it seems to be often, few and far between, and we're in one of those golden eras now. That opportunity is there once again. Fascinating to get your thoughts on all of this, Phil, but is your dog snoring? I really am going to keep so yes. I know we're fascinated by it. It just sounds like, you're not hearing things, listeners. It just does sound like it's either Phil's got a bit of a cold and he's like breathing a bit heavily.
I'm just glad I wasn't rumbled.
Thanks, Stuart. You got a cup of tea or something? A cup of coffee, keep you awake. Yeah. Stuart does have the glasses, the Homer Simpson style glasses with the eyes on the things, but they'd be good. Anyway, sorry to point that out, but we could hear it, and it was just obvious. Sorry. I'm going back to the other headphones next week. Okay, that's it. However much hassle they cause, I'm going back to the other ones so I can mute the microphone, and you won't hear any of this. So, Stuart Lyons has been on. Hello, Stuart, still tuned in. He says, I think Carl Swift will win this weekend. I agree. That would be brilliant. I absolutely agree with Mr. Lyons. Carl's had a lot of pace. I'll be honest, he was robbed, I tell you. Mr. Lyons will agree with this, of a podium at Brands Hatch. And when the cars had some, more set-up time and tweaking at Alton Park, both Mr. Lyons and Mr. Swift were very, very much in the mix for another podium finish. So yes, I humbly agree, and I feel Mr. Swift is definitely going to be within the mix for a win. Whether I have 2 dogs or 1 by the weekend, well, I'll let you know how that's worked out, because I may not have any at all. Thank you. Completely agree. The Coopers will definitely be within the mix, and I'm also going to give a shout out to Lewis as well in his Hyundai, because I think he's going to be well in the mix as well. He's looking to try and secure 4th place off of Jessica Bettman in the Volkswagen, and Lewis has been pushing really hard in the Hyundai. So yeah. I firmly agree, Mr. Lyons. Also, regarding the question that I asked just moments ago regarding if you had,
we're only just imagining that we have the money to run potentially a British touring car team, TCR UK, TCR Europe, whatever team, and also which amazing drivers would you get into your team if you were a team manager. Well, Blake Gibbons is tuned in. Hello, good evening, Blake, regular listener to Motorsport Radio. Hello. And he says, well, if I had the finances, I personally would help run a team like, for example, the University of, or Pro Technica, the University of Bolton team, for example, in various series and maybe in other championships, i.e. pre-93 touring, and gradually work up the touring car ladder. That's what Blake Gibbons says. Also, hello, Bert Taylor, tuned in. And hello, Paul Owen, who points out I've made a spelling mistake on the TCR UK standings. It's Sean Walkinshaw, not Sean Wilkinshaw.
Don't worry, we'll work on that for next week, Lester. We'll sort you out on that. Although you've got the checkered flag spelt right this week.
You.
You're doing well.
Yes.
It's going well.
Amazing. One thing at a time.
Like learn the lesson now. There we go. Next thing we'll sort out Sean Walkinshaw properly.
Sorry, Sean, if you tuned in. It wasn't personal. But yeah, so moving swiftly on then, because we do have more things to talk about other than TCR UK, as good as TCR UK is. Did we have any other things on the agenda that we wanted to mention? Just quickly regarding the fight for maybe third and fourth place.
So, yeah, quick mention to the fight for third place in the Teams Championship. We're looking at Maximum Motorsport. Funny you should mention Stuart Lyons, actually, because that's his team. And also Essex and Kent Motorsport. So they're quite closely matched in the team's point standings. And then with regards to the Drivers' Championship, as I was saying, we've also got Lewis Kent and Jessica Beckman fighting for fourth place in the Drivers' Championship. Just to sort of add to this, you've got obviously Ollie and Dan fighting for the title. Andreas Beckman is in third place and quite clear from being ahead of Jessica and Lewis. So Jessica and Lewis are the closest fight at the table to score points. Yeah, there's still plenty there, plenty of movement to be around. And to be honest, you know, with the grid we've got, the guys are going to give it their all. Everyone's going to look to have a fantastic last couple of races of the season and push as hard as they can. So anything really could happen. You know, the points placings aren't set in stone just yet. And as we've seen this year, you know, the guys give their all each time they go racing, so anything can change.
And I have one eye peeled on the comments flooding in, and one eye obviously on you guys. Hi, but yeah, there's been lots of great suggestions rolling in all evening, especially to I suppose the stuff that Mark James was. He dropped a couple of, I say, were they bombshells? They sounded like at least talking points, I would say.
I was going with hints myself.
Heavy hints, and
yeah.
I particularly, and one that seems to have captured the imagination of many people is which particular tracks TCR UK might go, because one might think that they might aim to go to the same tracks as is this year, but he almost confirmed that wasn't necessarily going to be the case. And well, we've already had one suggestion in about where TCR UK could go, maybe to where was it, Cadwell?
That's right. Yep.
And I mean, I'm going to personally, I'm going to suggest, why don't they go to the one in Wales on the coast, Anglesey?
Very good.
Yes, the old Alzheimer's. Yeah, so my personal favourite for that, I know we talked about it a bit earlier. Also, Ryan Clark, been on. Hi, good evening, Ryan, thanks for tuning in. He says, what different tracks, British tracks, would you like to see the TCR UK visit? I suppose he's repeating our own question back to us. But Ryan, what tracks would you like to see TCR visit? Answers in the comments box, I suppose. So moving on, as we were saying, we do try and move on swiftly. Carl Swiftly. Hello. So I suppose the big main question, will Dan Lloyd do the business this weekend? The answer, just wait and see. Don't want to put too much pressure on him, because we don't want to jinx him, do we, guys?
No, we don't.
And the question that I've been tentatively wanting to ask, which Mark James himself, TCR UK media coordinator, suggested, has touring cars lost its way in recent years? That is my question to you tonight, guys, and tuned in. Let us know. Even if you're not tuned in live, you can still interact with the show. We do like reading all your comments, even if it's later in the week, so do keep them coming in. Has touring cars lost its way in recent years? Suggesting, I think he was, that maybe TCR is the answer to touring cars having lost its way. I'm just reading between the lines, maybe, putting words in his mouth, but that would be the intimation of what he was suggesting. We will talk more about touring cars in the form of World Touring Cars, World Touring Car Cup, in just a moment's time. But first, there's the little matter, Phil Stewart, of the Motorsport Awards to mention, because if you've not been paying attention, the Motorsport Awards, the official Motorsport Awards, is now open. Yes, head to motorsportawards.com and you can nominate everything. There's 38 different categories open for its inaugural season. Everything from Driver of the Year, Car of the Year, Racing Championship of the Year, Race Car of the Year, Road Car of the Year, I think there's a category for that. The Best Marshal of the Year or Official of the Year. The Best Commentator of the Year. I know there's a couple tuned in tonight. By the way, motorsport media contractors and myself are not eligible for any motorsport awards. So no. Yeah, that's not going to be. I
was going to vote for Stuart, to be honest. As a newcomer to this, Stuart had my vote.
Yeah, there is a Journalist of the Year, category of the year award. So yeah, potentially both eligible. Go on.
I was hoping to win Car of the Year, but that's about it.
You could do it. There's still time.
Take a minute to sort of like work that one out, but. Yeah, Phil, you would have had my vote as well. Don't worry.
Oh, appreciate that. That's it. Stick together, DCF guys.
That's what you were waiting for.
But if you actually want to go and vote and not just talk about it, head to motorsportawards.com, cast your vote, or you can go to the Motorsport Radio website, which is motorsport.radio/awards, and pick from any number of different categories to nominate a person who might make the final selection, which is going to be released in November the 5th. Remember that date. Don't know why that's important. Don't know why. But yeah, the 5th of November is when the final awards, who's made the shortlist, who's made the top 10, that is when it all gets announced on there. And if you want to nominate anybody, potentially, there could even be a couple of outside cheeky suggestions at this stage, because all it takes really is, if you and 100 other friends get together and nominate, let's say Darrell Wilson for a Driver of the Year, let's say. Hello, I know he's tuned in. Then he'll be on the shortlist. It's almost as simple as that. And you're limited to one nomination in each category, by the way. So motorsportawards.com, place to go and check out what the Motorsport Awards are. It's the official Motorsport Awards, and Motorsport Radio is the official broadcaster of the Motorsport Awards. Hello. So we are on episode number 3 of the live Touring Car Talk Show, and we're talking about the Touring Car World Touring Car Cup right now, Phil. So
yes, we are.
What's the big news in the WTCR/World Touring Car Cup?
So that's right. They had their second weekend in China on Saturday and Sunday, part of the China double leg this year in the calendar, and a completely different track from Ningbo, really. Ningbo is obviously a fully set-in circuit, specifically built this way to have touring car racing, sports car racing, etc. take place. Wuhan is actually completely different. The fact it's a street circuit which held its first international event with WTCR taking place. The Chinese Touring Car Chinese Touring Car Championship was taking place there as well, along with several other local championships. And as touring car fans know, tin tops normally have a fun time around street circuits, whether they are circuits you can overtake on or circuits you can't overtake on. Wuhan I think has proven to be you can overtake on it if you sort of help your fellow drivers to one side, I think it's safe to say. And at the same time, it also had some pretty good action. But there were places that, unfortunately, yes, you've got the train of cars. You had the line astern single file. But yeah, definitely a much different weekend to Ningbo. Balance of performance changed with the weights on the various cars. So the Hyundai stayed on the maximum weight, but the Audis, the Cupras, the Golfs, a lot of the cars lost weight this weekend, and the performance difference was actually quite big, and also has shaken up the championship, safe to say as well. So yeah, definitely a very interesting weekend in Wuhan, and I'm also hoping that my good friend and colleague Stuart has been doing some homework and tuning in so we can involve him in some more TCR conversation. Is this true, Mr. Richards? How do we do this weekend?
No pressure.
No pressure.
Show your work.
If I start crying, it's yeah. I watched all the races the highlights of the first race because they're on Eurosport. It was obviously, as Phil attested to, the circuit was didn't really have much good sort of like. Not good, but good racing. It was very processional, as Phil was saying. But I enjoyed whatever race happened. There was a bit safety car involved in the final race, which sort of lessened the amount of laps, so we could get a bit of racing action. But I enjoyed myself, trying to keep myself occupied since the British Touring Car Championship is now over. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Race one. Well, obviously building up to this, hearing about the Hyundais and their domination, and seeing them so far down the field, I was thinking, what's going on? This balance of performance thing. Obviously, BTCC gets a success balance, but this balance of performance, I've never really seen it in action apart from hearing about it. But I didn't know it was. I didn't know they would be affected that badly. Do you think that would change for the next few rounds? Do you think they'll complain or something like that? Sort of like
I don't know.
Complain is the right word, but
this is touring car racing. Any sort of balance of performance or performance balancing, if you want to put it that way, you're always going to have drivers complaining. It's the way. If drivers weren't complaining about BOP or success balance or something, it wouldn't be right. Somebody's getting it right. Something wrong with the drivers, but still, So what happens, to give you sort of a clearer picture, Stuart, and also everyone else watching as well. So in WTCR, the balance of performance is reviewed every 3 rolling rounds. So the organised look back at the 3 previous rounds, take into the account the fastest laps taken by each model of car, and then judge, what measures need to be taken. So we've TCR regulations that are used for this. So this can include a reduction in engine power, and we see a similar thing in BTCC with the mythical boost changes that nobody seems to see or know about. There's also, funny enough, and there's also weight added to. There's also weight added to the cars as well, or taken out depending on how fast or slow they have been. There's further success ballast added to them for the fact of compensation. There's 2 types of weight. It gets a little bit confusing. You've got compensation weight, which is basically from a test earlier in the year to see how equal the cars are. Some cars need more weight, other cars need less. Some cars need more turbo boost or even engine power, need less. And one of the thing they look into is also the ride height of the cars as well. So they can actually increase or decrease the ride height of the cars to certain amounts to try and, again, equalise everything. I think it was.
Do they have a minimum level of ride height? Do they?
I think it goes down. I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be corrected by those out there. That I think it goes down to about 80 millimetres, possibly 70 millimetres. I know the Hyundais earlier this year were running to a much higher amount of 100 millimetres. It doesn't sound a lot, but if the cars are obviously riding higher above the track as we know it, if they don't look as though they're going as low, that's not producing as much grip, and obviously making it more difficult to set the cars up for racing. So yeah, they definitely suffered a lot, and it's the second time this has happened this year. It happened in Zandvoort as well when they were on maximum ballast. They seemed to suffer a lot, but this time they were completely out of the points. And when you consider you've got the all 4 Hyundai drivers in shout at least before the weekend started for the championship. This was actually quite a game changer.
I'm just to be perfectly honest, Phil, when it comes to World Touring Car Cup action, because there's been so much other things that I've been paying attention to this season, I've not seen as many races in WTCR as I would have liked. So I've not been keeping up to date. Certainly, definitely nowhere near the amount of technical regulations and technical stuff as you have. But when you describe just how much technical decisions go on to tweak the BOP and the rolling changes that go on and the pre-season test versus the actual performance and the thing, and when you get to a stage now at Wuhan, for example, like you were suggesting, that when we have a situation now where drivers and teams are fighting it out and they're being effectively penalised and unable to score a single point, and they're fighting it out for the championship, does that not just make a complete mockery of racing?
I want to say no, it doesn't, because again, as we've discussed before, we're in an era.
Where am I going?
You. Yes, I can see from an outsider point of view. Yes, it does. You are penalising the fastest guys, and we are in a day and age where fans want to see. Well, I suppose the opinion's changing actually, but fans want to see that an equal field. Every driver having a chance at winning a race, at taking pole position, at scoring points. So,
but there's an equal field, and it seems to me that Wuhan wasn't so equal. It was more equal for some and not for others, like at the front of the championship, for example.
Yeah, and part of this comes down to, like we say, it is a balance of performance to try and keep everything equal. That's what TCR aims to do, and the same with BTCC, DTM, etc. Every touring car series we know has has its own way of trying to level the field, level the playing field when you've got different cars, different manufacturers involved. Some circuits will highlight BOP more than others. And in this case, yes, the Hyundais were suffering, but whilst they were suffering, the Audis recently have come to the fore. They have struggled this year in the first half of the year as they've tried to sort of find their feet with what is essentially the second year of racing for the Audi RS3 TCR car. Now we've got all 6 Audis fighting for points positions at Wuhan. Jean-Carl Venet, he's also racing in TCR Europe. Nathaniel Burton, Frederick Vivish, Aurélien Panis, Gordon Shedden, all of these guys were fighting for podium positions, for pole positions and wins. And obviously, as we all saw, all those that have tuned in that saw in race 3, Gordon Shedden not only took pole position, which got in the race 3 pole position, and also then went on to take the race 3 pole despite some impressive pressure. So, yeah, BOP is there to equalise things, but if you had a situation in TCR where the best cars by the best teams but driven by the best drivers, you're probably looking at the Hyundai being the best car. So I can see how it's penalising the car, but with the theory of, yes, we want an equal field, as equal as we can get, short of saying here is a single make championship where obviously everyone is equal, same car, same engine, same tyres. That's not what touring cars is about. It's about various different manufacturers, teams, etc., building their own cars, going and racing and having a chance at being as successful as they can. So, yeah, I can see where it's coming from. The outsider point, I completely agree. Why should we penalise them? They're doing what they can. The other view is, well, so many people complained about the best car, the best team, the best driver so many years ago. These measures were brought in to equalise everything and get the racing closer again. So, yeah, I can understand completely.
Going back to a point that I think we made on last week's show regarding why we have the certain regulations that we have at the moment, and we do forget as motorsport fans of our various series and championships that actually, I think we actually have a bit of a short memory, because going back a few years, even to like 15 something years ago, to BTCC, for example, just rehashing last week's debate that we had, there's a good reason why certain things happened, and that was to make certain improvements. And I do understand it. I'm not having a go. But it's, I suppose it's just me being out of the loop and just thinking, well, why is this happening? Because on the face of it, doesn't quite make sense, but I know there's a good reason for it, and you've stated your case, Phil, so thank you for educating us on that. Adam Matheson's been in touch. He's tuned in once again. Hello, good evening, Adam. He suggests that Wuhan wasn't the best circuit. I'll say that. I'm rephrasing much of what he said. And others might agree with Adam's comment on that. But he went on to say as well that Wuhan Race 1, in Adam's words, was pitiful. Race 2, he said, was a circus of shambles, almost half the race under a safety car. Get to proper circuits, he says, with proper runoff, no walls, tyre stacks, and self-imploding curbs. And yeah, so he's I guess the overall gist of Adam's point was that he's not very impressed with Wuhan.
I'll be honest, I agree, and I also agree with Adam's point. I know we're supposed to have debate on this, but unfortunately, Adam's also, I agree with him on this one. I would like to see cars at circuits that promote overtaking, because the TCR is capable of it. If you want examples, TCR International had the right idea when it was raining for the last 3 years. They went to lots of circuits that promoted overtaking, that encouraged overtaking, and you had plenty of action on track with cars swapping positions backwards and forwards. So it is possible. However, with this being a World Cup, you've also got to have as much coverage as you can around the world at various different circuits, and offer new challenges to the drivers as well. Personally, again, I don't know if Adam's going to agree or not. I know we've got Macau coming up in November, and I always enjoy Macau because I see that as more of a challenge than Monaco, Wuhan. There are other street circuits out there. I think that's the biggest challenge for a driver because you can overtake there and race hard.
Exactly.
But yeah, I agree. I think it was a difficult circuit to have on there, and I'm not sure if they're going to go back. I'll be honest. Like I was saying to Stuart and Lester off air before we came on air. This week, I'm hoping the 2019 WTCR calendar will be released, and hopefully we'll see what circuits they're going to do next year, and if there's going to be any change to it, and obviously any different circuits that would encourage overtaking. Hopefully there's some feedback taken on board. But yeah, Wuhan was definitely a difficult circuit for the teams and drivers this weekend. But as a British fan, we had a British winner. And the Audis as well, like I say, definitely have come out to play, and I think they're out to stay as well, which I didn't mean to write. I haven't planned that. So yes, the Audis were definitely out in force. Sort of a quick roundup of race 1 will go on. Jean-Carl Venet took pole position and then took a lights to flag win. Really, really impressive. He's really at ease with the Audi. Last year he was in the Volkswagen Golf previously, so he's done really, really well on this. And again, showing what he can do. He is the top Audi man at the moment. From that, like I say, behind him, he had Pepe Oriola, who's really showing an improvement in performance in the Cupra, and also Gordon Shedden taking his first podium. It wasn't to be his last of the weekend, but definitely from what I've seen on social media, a very, very popular podium for the Scotsman, who's made the move from BTCC to WTCR. Struggled in the first half of the season, as a lot of people have agreed, but now the Audi is coming good. He's found the sweet spot. He's definitely got to grips with the car and showed that in Wuhan. Race 2, yeah, like I say, lots of contact, safety cars involved, as Adams pointed out quite rightly. However, we did have a thrilling end to the race because you had Mehdi Benani in the Sebastian Loeb Racing Volkswagen Golf, trying to hold off, Aurelien Comte in the Peugeot 308, and the Peugeot itself, just to sort of help understand this a little bit better, has a 1.6 litre turbo compared to the Golf with a 2 litre turbo. The Golf was also heavier than the Peugeot because it has been a more successful car. And Benani admits, if you look at the various reports online, he admits he was at his absolute maximum trying to hold off Aurelien Comte and also Nathaniel Burton in an Audi. In the last few laps of the race, it was actually quite exciting to watch, a scrap for the lead that didn't just have 2 drivers, you had 2 or even 3 drivers. It's definitely, race 2 was one of the more exciting ones. I think Vernet had it really easy in race 1. Race 2 was definitely more exciting, with obviously the safety car bits moved into it as well. And then, to be honest, for me, race 3's got one of the biggest talking points. We've already mentioned one of them. Shedden takes the podium in race 1. He gets pole position on Sunday morning to take the race 3 pole, the way that WTCR works, and then had to fend off 2 of his fellow Audi stablemates. Denis Dupont, who has impressed me, and Frederick Vervisch. And I think I've got to say, and we'll see if we bring Stuart in on this because I want to see his thoughts on this, potentially one of the most interesting ways of trying to pass someone from Denis Dupont by throwing a tyre stack at your opponent. I'm not sure what your thoughts on this are, Stuart.
Well, we've also got to point out that at the first corner, just after the start, Dupont went into the back of Gordon from pole position, almost spun him out. That's as unbelievable. But yeah, heading down to the chicane, Dupont tried to go for a dive, but on the apexes of the chicanes there was a tyre stack, and Dupont went straight into this tyre stack, right into the side of Shedden. And I believe that if that tyre stack wasn't there, Shedden would have had, because he already had steering damage from the second race, because his team had managed to replace his I've got the word here. Yeah, he had his steering rack. That's it, steering rack.
That's it, steering rack.
That's the word. Yeah. the most difficult English word out there. Yeah, he had a steering rack replaced between his retirement from the first lap of race 2 into pole position for race 3. And I imagine that if that tyre stack wasn't there, I said to Phil at the time that Shedden would have been out. And I believe if anyone watched the footage after they pulled into Parc Fermé, Dupont went up to congratulate Shedden, and Shedden went two times hit me. He was obviously not very happy with that move, and it looked comical from the outside, but it definitely wasn't the move you want to make on an Audi teammate, as it were.
No, and yeah, definitely made for some fun, exciting racing as far as we could watch. But as you can say, you can quite imagine Gordon Shedden's reaction. Twice you hit me, once with a tyre stack, once you try to push me off. What are you trying to aim? And it also highlights as well. You've got two different Audi teams in WTCR. You've got WRT, who are a well-known Audi customer team that run sports cars as well as touring cars that run Shedden and Vernet. And then you've got Come To You Racing, who are running the other 4 Audis, as well as taking part in other Audi sports car activities as well. And now that the RS3 has come on song, we're in a situation where these guys are thinking, hang on, I can get a victory now. I can get pole position. I can fight for points up the front with the Hyundais, with the Cupras, with the Hondas. And suddenly things are closing up a lot more. And it is really interesting to see that, the Audis are up there. Traditionally, and again, Stuart will attest to it along with myself, Audi touring cars have been hugely successful. Super Touring, not necessarily Super 2000 as much, and obviously in DTM, but an Audi touring car is normally a real weapon on the field to have. And I think we are seeing the beginnings of what could potentially, for next year, in WTCR at least, could be a championship challenge, at least from several of the drivers, I think, in the Audi RS3, with further development over the winter as well.
Yes, I concur.
Thank you, Lester.
I wasn't asleep, unlike your dogs, who are happily still snoring away.
Yeah. This one's going to be a struggle to listen to.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
The hint here, ladies, gentlemen, and kids, is never work on the internet with a camera in front of you and have your dogs in the same room.
Or do and have hilarious consequences, maybe.
Yeah.
So for you then, Phil and Stuart, from WTCR from the weekend, Wuhan. I was reminded of a Busta Rhymes song. Anyway, never mind. No. Anyway, from you then, guys, what was the best race of the weekend in WTCR?
Go on, Stuart, you go first.
Well, obviously, from a British touring car perspective and a British fan perspective, race 3 was great to see Gordon Shedden finally take a win in World Touring Cars. But for me, from what I watched, the ending of the second race, despite it ending a bit sort of like questionably with the overtake that Compt made on Bernani, it was. I thought that was a great battle. So I'd say for excitement in the final few laps, race 2, but from a British perspective, I'll go race 3.
I'm probably going to agree on this because, like I say, seeing Gordon Shedden taking him was
where's
brilliant.
the debate?
Yeah, okay, so that's it. We're going to start.
No, you're wrong. You're both wrong.
There we go. There's Leicester diving in.
Race 1 was so good. It was so boring. It was wonderful.
It was, yes, absolutely quiet. Yeah, for me, Gordon Shedden getting his first World Cup win. Was brilliant to see. And like I say, watching it on Sunday and seeing the social media reaction, a lot of BTCC fans were really happy to see him doing so well, as well as TCR fans as well, around the world as well. I agree. Race 2, I think the ending spiced it up a bit, but race 3 for me does it. I'm also going to give a shout out to Esteban Guerreri in his Honda, which the exhaust in race 2, I think the bracket must have given away because he was happily providing sparks from the underside of the car in true Formula 1 fashion. Not that it was needed because the action didn't need the sparks and Formula 1 type fashion involved because of touring cars, and it's a hell of a lot more exciting than Formula 1. If you disagree, happy to debate. We don't have a Formula 1 show, do we? So no, I think that was a good. But I'm going to go with race 3. And like I say, lots of work, lots of chasing, but great to see Shedden taking his first win as well as his first pole position, and hopefully the first of many.
Exactly. All right then. If you do have any disagreements with Stuart or Phil or whatever opinions I managed to shoehorn into tonight's conversation, let us know. Do not be afraid. We like open debate and discussion, and we can all do that in a nice way. And the dog's already given up on the debate, I think. Sorry. So sorry. I won't keep mentioning it. But
if you're really unlucky, one of them may. I don't know. Actually, they both quite. If you're really unlucky, one of them may actually just try and pop ahead and see if they can put themselves on camera, which they seem to try and do when we go off air when we finished each time. So, in the meantime, we'll give the dog a poke and tell it to stop snoring. And
she'll bite you.
Yeah, she probably would. No, she won't. So.
Adam Matheson's been back in touch and he says 20 laps of WTCR under safety car is better than F1.
Yes,
I disagree with that.
You disagree. I'm going to disagree with you. You disagree with Adam because I'm sorry. Yeah, it's getting messy.
Anyway, shall we move on? So a couple of rounds left in WTCR, and they are next in. They're next going to be big in Japan.
Yes.
Yay.
So, and something that's a big point for me actually is that they're going to be in racing at Suzuka on the full Grand Prix circuit, which is a big change. Normally they run on the short, I think it's a Southern Oval, or the Southern circuit at Suzuka in many years past. But this time, something fans have wanted to see for many years is to see touring cars, full chat, coming through 130R, front-wheel drive touring cars, and the challenge of getting those cars through 130R, stopping them to get them into the chicane, going through the spoon curve. Suzuka is a challenging circuit, it's a fast circuit, it's a good old-fashioned circuit.
And that's off camber as well,
it is, as well, isn't it? Yeah, so it's even more. So you're doing well. You did your homework. I like this. So yes, Suzuka is going to be a really challenging circuit for the guys to go across. I believe they're also taking part the same weekend as Formula Nippon or Super Formula, however it's being called nowadays.
Formula Nippon. Whatever it's called.
As it is. I think it's Super Formula now.
That. We all know it is. To be honest, aren't we all just thinking about the Japanese screaming commentators? I mean, let's be honest. When we think about that series, we do.
That was going through my head as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. Come on, be honest.
Yeah. So no, they're going to be there in about 3 weeks' time. If you look on social media, talking of the Formula One connection very quickly, Dan Lloyd took a photo of the start of the Japanese Grand Prix on his telly and went, "Oh yes, I'm in for an exciting race." Not. And Honda WTCR actually picked him up on this and went, "Don't worry, Dan, we're back in action in 3 weeks' time." So yeah, have no fear if you're struggling with other motorsports out there and finding them boring and you love your touring car racing. WTCR is back in 3 weeks' time at Suzuka. More early morning starts as obviously with this time of the year, but yes, definitely one I'm looking forward to seeing how they go on the Grand Prix circuit. More balance of performance adjustments and more homework for Stuart and Leicester as well.
I really hope that it's not a anticlimax like going to the Nürburgring was around the Nordschleife. when that was announced, I know this wasn't WTCR, but you know, when it was announced previously, everyone was going bananas over it and was like, "Oh my god, it's going to be the greatest thing ever!" Oh my god, I knew it wasn't, and I was right. And then they then they moved.
They
on.
keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with the TCR cars. There's been a little bit more action. The TC ones had too much aero on them, but the Nürburgring race is basically you're sort of lying astern for 3/4 of the circuit once you come off the Grand Prix circuit, and once you get onto the big long back straight dotting a her, that's where the overtaking comes into place, and then you've got to slow the cars down to come back onto the Grand Prix circuit. Anyone that's played Forza, Gran Turismo, that's taken a car around the Nordschleife will know how difficult it is to do it. Yeah. Taking one of these things around in real life, even more difficult, and then trying to overtake everyone in an equal situation as it is. I can see that. I'm hoping Suzuka, like you say, isn't the anticlimax and is definitely going to live up to its potential.
Let's just hope, and I'm sure Stuart will agree. Unless he disagrees. Okay.
I was just thinking about the Nordschleife. I know this is completely off topic, but often talk about sort of like Hermann Tilke when he designed Formula One circuits. Like I used to be a fan of Formula One, hard to believe. Yeah. But Hermann Tilke, his favourite circuit is the Nürburgring Nordschleife, I've heard. And so every circuit he makes from then on is trying to be a copy or smaller version of the Nordschleife. So that means loads of turns, twists, then all of a sudden a massive long straight where to have all the overtakes.
Yeah, but he's done with like a ruler though, isn't it? That's the old joke about Tilke's design. It's done with like it's like a compass and stuff.
Yeah, but that's from my Formula One days, but they've long gone now. So
anyway, moving on. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say very quickly, Stuart, do you have a favourite Tilke circuit? Because I do. I have one. There is one I really enjoy, which I think they should go back to.
I didn't mind Turkey.
Oh, spot on. We're going to agree again. It's going to be one of the nights.
To be honest, I'm in agreement with that as well, to be honest. I think that's probably everybody's greatest so far, Tilke track.
And Hockenheim, I think, as well. His Hockenheim redesign. I used to be a big fan of the big long straights, don't get me wrong, but the Hockenheim redesign, I think, has enticed more racing and lots of overtaking. So that comes a close second on the Tilke drones.
It does seem to constantly produce what you want in a race. Yes.
Yeah.
All right then. And Blake Gibbons, by the way, is listening to all of this still. Well done, Blake. Obviously got nothing better to do. He says Nürburgring has several races already, like the VLN. Yes, it does. But I was just more sort of mentioning regarding my fear about if regarding sort of the Suzuka. Hopefully, it won't be a bit of an anticlimax. But VLN racing there. People seem to like it. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, fine. It's all good. It's all good, man. That's what I always say.
It's all good.
I always say that, don't I? Don't I do it? I always say that. Right, okay, moving on, because it wasn't just all about TCR UK, which is this weekend. And it's not just all about WTCR, the World Touring Car Cup, because, yes... there was the small matter of the Bathurst 1000 race at the weekend.
And also a Spring Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Oh, dear. Carry on.
There's the Bathurst... Sorry, am I boring you, dog?
No.
Carry on.
It's bedtime soon. I'm just going to keep nudging her.
It is. Dear. Oh, my God.
Do you know what, Nick, when she watches these back, she enjoys watching this and having a good laugh to see how many different things can go wrong. She's absolutely going to love the fact that the dog's got so many mentions on a touring car program. Is that? Yes, it is. Right, okay. Anyway, Bathurst, carry on.
Yes, exactly. So, Bathurst. And I was thinking about maybe how to go about approaching this. And my first thought about Bathurst is that, unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it live because I was busy at another motorsport event. But my second thought was, it's okay, I'll catch up on Motorsport TV when they replay that. And then my third thought was, oh, wait, that doesn't exist anymore. So, and I would be in the same situation as a lot of people, a bit disgruntled. But I'm going to really try and not focus on the negatives and focus on the actual results and the actual racing, which I understand, Stuart, was actually quite good.
Well, yeah, from what I watched, I was in the same boat. I was hoping to stay up late, watch the full 6 hours or all 161 laps, but then to get started off with this stream I had, it was a legal stream. It was it was all a bit. It was. Don't arrest me, anyone.
I've never heard of Burning Wheels.
but from I only got through one lap before the whole thing started crashing down on me, and I thought, I've got to wait until the reports come out and the highlights on YouTube come out. But anyway, it was a dream. A dream ending for Craig Lowndes in his final full season in the Supercars Championship. He took his 7th Bathurst win as a full-time driver. He's now 2 away from the all-time record, which is 9, set by Peter Brock. But he could still come back as co-driver and maybe tie or even break the record. Craig Lowndes' co-driver, Stephen Richards, son of legend Jim. That was actually Stephen's 5th Bathurst victory, and he's now 2 wins behind his father. So it was a good weekend all round for the legends of the sport that year. In second was Scott Pye and Warren Luff in the Walkinshaw Andretti Holden. Supposedly after qualifying, I read that when Pye qualified in 18th, the team were immensely unhappy with the qualifying position, and they were also unhappy with James Courtney qualifying in 8th. So you can imagine what sort of reaction was to be in 18th. But for the second year in a row, they've got forwards and they took a great podium, 2nd place. And third, I thought this was amazing. Scott McLaughlin, he took his first ever Bathurst podium in the Supercars. I thought he had one a few years ago, but obviously the Volvo, I think he was involved in an incident a couple of years ago with the Volvo in Wing Cup when they all got taken out after the chase. Last year he retired after 76 laps due to an issue with the car. But this year, despite the Falcon and the Penske cars being much slower for some reason, he and Alex Prima managed to stay out of trouble, and they took 3rd position and very well redeemed themselves from what happened last year.
The last year's winners, I believe. When I say I believe, I'm clearly just reading it off the internet. Was it David Reynolds and Luke?
David Reynolds and Luke Youlden.
Yeah, them. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, and Lowndes last won it. Did he last win it in 2015 by any chance?
I believe he did. That's good knowledge, Lester. Well done.
Yay! Well done, me. But yeah, no. Congratulations, by the way, to Craig Lowndes, as you say, and to do that race is a marathon in and of itself. One of the world's greatest races ever. 161 laps on the day. 6 hours, 1 minute, 44 seconds, 0.8637 was the winning time. And it's part of the endurance series that Bathurst 1000. But the overall Virgin Australia Supercars. Yay. Don't you mean V8s? No, Virgin Australia Supercars changed a few years ago, kids. But yeah, the actual championship standings, if you are of a person who keeps up to date with such things, I know Nigel Chu is, one of our Motorsport Radio website journalists. Hello there, Nige. He was devastated to not be on tonight's show. We tried really hard to get Nigel on the show, and he will be on one day, don't worry. Incidentally, in the meantime, you can go on to motorsport.radio and read some of his articles, especially about why a certain Virgin Supercar driver is like, I think, what was it, like the Michael Schumacher of supercars.
Would it be happening any chance to be referring to Jamie Whincup?
Probably, yes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot of points that get accrued in a supercar season, and Shane Van Gisberg is leading at the moment. Scott McLaughlin in the overall championship for the season, with Mr. Whincup in 3rd, and Lowndes. Despite, and it was double points as well, which, just like the Indy 500, he is in 4th position in the championship at the moment. Overall thoughts about the Bathurst race, Stuart?
Well, it's a shame to see that the reigning King of the Mountain, David Reynolds, have such immense pressure on himself. He's even admitted himself that he was putting the pressure on himself leading up to the race, like he wasn't getting enough sleep, and he was just was just focused on victory so intently, he just didn't look after himself. And I suppose there was questions towards his team Erebus, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, about at the end of him being pulled out the car after suffering from cramping, exhaustion, him collapsing, and there was worries about the physical and mental state of Reynolds. But it was certainly his downfall that he just put everything into that race. It's admirable, obviously, but it was not nice to see a driver just give it all, but absolutely come to absolutely nothing. And surprise, Jamie Whincup, if that was the Michael Schumacher that was being mentioned there, he despite losing the front right wheel of their Holden down the start-finish straight, he drove an absolutely fantastic fight back to finish 10th overall and on the lead lap as well, despite losing wheel. But I've heard his team got punished, and they've had a docking of points for their championship. And I don't have the team standings in front of me right at this moment. But it was a good Bathurst 1000. It was a dream ending, obviously, for Craig Lowndes. Final year as a full-time driver, and to take the win, that's obviously what he was set out to do, and no one's really taken that away from him.
Your thoughts on what happened in the race, Phil? Did you manage to catch any of the action in the 1000?
I wasn't able to catch much of the action live, I'll be honest. Although it's something I've been trying to do for years with my stepson, actually, my younger stepson. He's a big fan of Jamie Whincup, Shane Van Gisbergen, sorry, and also Red Bull Race. Teeth have gone this evening. The Red Bull Racing Australia team, or as they are now, Red Bull Holden Racing team. Sorry, catch up, Phil. Yes, yeah, it is actually. Yes, it's going well. I wasn't able to watch it live, but able to catch up with some of the footage. And if anything, like I say, the big guns seem to once again fall out. Bathurst seems to weed out the bigger teams, and the guys that are still running at the end are the ones that are profiting from it. And as you say, Whincup lost out with the loose wheel. Van Gisbergen fighting back, to try and get Red Bull onto the podium. McLaughlin, I must admit, I'm a big fan of Scott McLaughlin from when he was in the Volvo. He absolutely took the fight to Jamie Whincup on several seasons and proved he's an upcoming talent. On with the Penske Fords, he is in with a fight. Arguably, he should have won the title last year, but lost out. So hopefully this year he can beat Shane to the title. For me, though, yeah, I agree. Like I say, as Stuart said, Craig Lowndes taking his 7th Bathurst win, Stephen Richards taking his 5th Bathurst win overall. And from one of the videos on social media, you can hear the crowd shouting, one more year, because Craig Lowndes is such a big figure in supercars in Australia. And, the announcement that he was retiring this year was such a blow to a lot of fans. Whilst Craig is still competitive, and he's obviously proven it this weekend, he was able to fight for the win. He has struggled in recent years in the third AAA Racing Engineering entry. So it was great to see such support for both Craig and Stephen, getting on the podium, taking that win, an emotional win, and closing up on the record of Peter Brock. For myself, I'll be honest, like I say, what my experience sort of Peter Brock and Bathurst first sort of goes back to Super Touring and, almost a history lesson. Which reminds me, Leicester, what happened 20 years ago this week? I'm sure you've done some homework on this.
Well, from my memory only, Phil, 20 years ago is when the Super Tourers were at Bathurst 1000. I'm right on that one?
You are, yes. It was the second running of the Super Tourer version of the Bathurst 1000. They had support races up until 1997. 97 was the first running of the Super Touring version of the Bathurst 1000, which was dominated by BMWs and Audis.
20 years ago.
From memory, yes, 20 years ago. And then 1998 was the big one. And as regular viewers, have listened into the recorded versions of the show and live, Stuart and I are obviously very big fans of Super Touring. And who
isn't, to be honest?
Well, exactly. Yeah, everyone's a fan of it. And as we know, during the ages, through the 90s, Super Touring had lots of big events. You had the FIA Challenge, you had the World Touring Car Cup, you had the Tourist Trophy, and then the next big thing, this sort of last hurrah for Super Touring, seemed to be having the international drivers running at Bathurst and taking on the local talent. And 1998, I think, you could sort of say is the most popular, the most pivotal Bathurst Super Touring out of the two, because it was literally a half a dozen fight versus two of the biggest teams at the time running Super Touring entries out there. Stuart, I believe one of your favourite drivers was involved in this particular race.
Yes, Rickard Rydell. He drove the I think it was the number 90 Volvo with Jim Richards.
That's it. And their rivals during the race was a works-supported Team Dynamics, as it was back at the time, with Matt Neal and Stephen Richards, oddly enough, who was a Nissan test driver back then, trying to see if they could stop the mighty Volvos. For Vauxhall fans, and I'll put my hand up for that as well, we had John Cleland and Derek Warwick driving one of the AAA Vectras that had been slightly improved, that had struggled during the 98 season in the UK yet. For endurance racing, the Vectra actually survived quite well and was the closest challenger to the Nissan Volvo battle, but it was literally a hand-to-hand combat Titan battle. I'm trying to think of the words to come across, because it was actually quite really good to watch back in the day live. Yes, I did, or at least from grandstand, we'll admit that much. But also, to sort of see how hard these guys were pushing in the best touring cars at the time, the best touring car drivers in the world, in Super Tourers, having a go hand-to-hand against each other, fighting on track for that. I know there's a lot of nostalgia with Rickard Rydell's pole position lap, which you can find on YouTube. That was a really big thing at the time. The lap that Rickard pulled out in the Volvo was just astonishing for Super Touring. And then obviously, the hard work and teamwork shown by Matt Neal and Stephen Richards with the Team Dynamics Nissan Primera, taking on the might of the Tom Walkinshaw Racing Volvo. So, it was a mighty race. Stuart, I don't know what sort of research you come up with on this, and how you can sort of add to this as well.
Well, you're talking about the Vauxhall Vectra of Cleland and Warwick, and the other Vectra, the Holden Vectra of Greg Murphy and Russell Ingall. They were running close until an incident where one of the Audis dropped oil at the top of Skyline, and it was Ingall in the car was the first to hit the oil, but right behind the Audi, straight off at the wall. It wasn't the Dipper, it's the S's, followed immediately by Tim Harvey in the second Volvo, straight into the barrier, and it was a bit of an incident. And I found out that was the first and only time that Russell Ingall had driven a 888 car in racing, which was quite a surprise, together with Greg Murphy. Elsewhere, as I say, Tim Harvey was there, a teammate of the Volvo. He'd obviously been away from the Volvo in the British touring cars.
Who was his teammate? Sorry, I was just looking through the entry list from
95.
Oh. It sounded like you were getting a bit carried away. Maybe breaking up.
There's a horrible frozen picture there. That's all right.
That's okay. I'm sure it won't be a meme later. No, if
you don't make it.
You'd mentioned that Harvey was also in the race, and I was looking at some of the other Brits who were also competing in that particular race as well. And without checking Wikipedia,
I've got my list in front of me. I'm sorry. It's going to be Phil on his own.
Okay, so I'm going to guess that we've already mentioned Cleland, we've mentioned Neal, we've mentioned Harvey. I'm sure that both Rob Gravitt and Lee Brooks were there in the Rocket Cargo Honda Accord. So I seem to remember them getting into the top 10 was quite an achievement in the privacy of Honda. Let's try and think of who
I bet there's one that you won't get. Super Touring.
Now I cannot.
You've missed that one you've mentioned already.
I've missed that one I've mentioned already.
Yeah.
Okay. Cleland, Warwick.
There you go. You've got
Harvey.
Warwick.
Warwick. Okay, this is Warwick. Cleland, Warwick, Harvey, Gravitt, Brooks. Good Lord, the electricity's frying the brain cells. Come on, Phil. There's got to be someone else.
I'll give you a clue.
Go on.
Well, I can't give you a clue. I can give you the answer though.
one of them from my research. He won he won his class in LMP2 twice in Le Mans in the mid-2000s. And he's a business owner.
Wow.
And he's from Manchester, according to Wikipedia.
But no, I'm struggling with the endurance bit because my endurance knowledge fails spectacularly.
Should I put him out his misery, Lester?
Go on then.
Mike Newton.
Right.
And the other one was Jamie Wall.
Yes, of course, Jamie Wall, who went obviously on to go and drive the Vauxhall Cavalier at the Silverstone Classic in such wonderful style. Like I say, 20 years ago, these guys were having a go around Bathurst in Super Tourers. It was a really exciting race, a really good race. I think it was also the last big hurrah for Super Tourers with international races. I know at the time, from experience, you could buy the 98 British Touring Car season, the 98 Australian Super Touring Car season on video. Yes, VHS, yes, kids, it did exist. Yeah, exactly. And as well as that, you could also get this particular race on VHS at the time as well and enjoy it. And like I say, for myself, lots of touring car goodness back in the day. So, but yeah, it definitely one of the big races if you're a super touring fan that was one to watch. The Volvos.
Oh my God, Stuart's holding up a
good, Stuart, very good.
Stuart's holding up a library book.
Here's one he prepared earlier,
which appears to be a video cassette type thing. Ask your parents, kids.
So no, it was definitely one of the big races at the time. Great to see the international talent taking on the Australian talent. I'm also as well something a memory I take from that was Grandstand showed a video or some footage of Brad Jones taking Murray Walker around Bathurst in the Audi.
Was that
A4.
the famous clip where he commentated? Or I know you probably did it a couple of times, but was it that particular one?
He's commentating as he's going around the track. I don't blame him, to be honest. If I was strapped in one of those things, I'd probably be... Well, no, actually, no, I wouldn't. I'd be completely scared and silent from experience in racing cars myself.
What I find about amazing about Murray, he doesn't... There's no sort of like fear with him. He's going around
That's
in a
what you
super touring
think.
car. Because if anyone's ever seen the footage of Darrell Waltrip going around Bathurst in the supercars, that's one of the funniest videos. It's probably the most viewed video on YouTube if anyone wants to find it. And he's in complete shock. He's in fear most of the rap. But Murray Walker, he's in there. He's like, yeah, he's commented. I would be, as I am now, not be able to find my words. And I'm sitting here going nowhere at the moment. But it
is a cracking video. My point from that I take from that video is it's not just Murray commentating; it's the howl of the 2-litre normally aspirated Audi engine as they were climbing through gears and going down Conrad Straight and everything, and the noise it's making. And Murray is just absolutely at one point gobsmacked. For someone who's commentated on so much motor racing in his career, for that to happen, you suddenly think, hang on, this guy's suddenly got nothing to say. Granted, he's got the howl of a 2-litre engine over him, at full pelt, which I think would be quite something difficult to challenge. But definitely, if you're a fan of super touring, definitely recommend looking up, for the history records and a bit of research. Get
yourself on YouTube and find all.
I did watch the 2-hour highlights earlier as research, as Phil says. And what I found amazing is if you read about it, you'd think that the Volvo of Rydell and Jim Richards, they blasted the field, they flew away, and it was theirs to lose. But if you watch it, the Nissan of Richards and Neal were up there, and they could have won it, and they were on course to practically probably even overtake the Volvo in the last few laps if it weren't for traffic up at Skyline and the Dipper. And it's a fantastic close race, and it's one for the super touring purists.
Had a comment come in, which to my great shame I didn't spot this. It was Blake Gibbons, all credit to you, Blake, who mentioned about that event in 1998, 20 years ago. That Lee Brooks also in attendance at that race, and he also was there. The Accord that he shared with Rob Gravitt was the fastest down the straight, but sadly they had an issue and had to retire about way through, which is a shame. Obviously, but we've seen in motorsport the fastest car down the straight doesn't really make it the fastest through the corners. So exactly
20 years on, it's still great analysing going on.
Oh, yes.
And 20 years on, why is it, Stuart, still so popular with all touring car fans? Not even just all touring car fans, but just motorsport fans worldwide.
It's super touring, isn't it? It's difficult to put your finger on sometimes why it's so popular, because
despite all the changes and all the stuff that's happened and the politics and the massive changes that have happened over the last few years, it's still, you just mentioned Bathurst and everyone wants to watch it.
That's obviously one factor to it. Like if you say to a Formula One fan Spa, they will immediately say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what year, it's still a great circuit." So it might have been helped by the Bathurst name being there for the magic. It might have been helped because it was in competition with the classic FAA 1000, which had the V8 supercars at the time, and it was the last year when it was almost reaching its peak. So obviously it would be great racing, great names. I say Rydell, Richards, Neil. Richards again, and it's rose-tinted glasses sometimes do come out, and the cars, but the cars. That's all I can say. The wonderful noise, great noise, as Phil said earlier with the Murray Walker clip, and the fantastic racing, as I was saying about how close it was between the Nissan and the Volvo, and I can imagine Phil can say something on this. I didn't, obviously, I was 4 years old back in 1998, and I wasn't able to watch much super touring car races. And I imagine not every single one of them was a classic, was it?
How dare you?
No, it's true. I'll be honest with you. I'll give you a classic example. Alain Menu was able to almost decimate the field as soon as he got into the Renault Laguna for sort of 1996, 97. Not every race was a classic. No, there were races you sort of watched and thought, yes, the best driver, the best car, the best team, as we've had the argument before, has gone on to do exactly the best. I'll be honest, myself, talking about the Bathurst theme and super touring. Yes, I was lucky enough. I was able to watch it live as it was on Grandstand and also recorded beforehand, before it became live coverage. And it was really good to see what looked like modern road cars in the beginning. At the time, before wings and front splitters and everything were introduced, to see super tourers running around, seeing them at the various tracks. I must admit, I had a big hankering to learn more about European super touring series. I was always interested in Germany because having such a big history with DTM. STW came along, Super Touring Wagen Cup, and you had almost all the big German driver names moving to that and changing over. Bathurst for me it's one of the iconic races. In motorsport, every form of motorsport, IndyCar has the Indy 500, Formula One, you can argue, has Monaco or Spa, either or. Touring car racing for me is Bathurst. That's the biggest touring car race for myself, because as we say, 161 laps of a circuit that goes up the side of a mountain and down again, virtual street circuit in some places, two guys driving their hearts out, sharing a car, one for the full-time championship, one who's normally a co-driver. There have been iconic pairings at Bathurst over the years, but I think it also just highlights as well, it's seeing almost road car like racing cars tackling a difficult circuit. And if you come out on top of that, as Stuart said, as yourself earlier, Peter Brock, you have the Peter Brock Trophy now, named after the man who is iconically known for dominating Bathurst, one of the big names of dominating that circuit, taming that circuit in various different machinery as well. For me, I think it's such a big thing. One, because it's touring car racing, where there is a massive touring car fan base in the UK and worldwide. Two, it's seeing these guys tackling it, especially in these cars, 5-litre V8 engines. Amazing cars have come out of the Supercars Championship in Australia over the past few years, throughout the various regulation changes, whether it's been Holden, Ford, Mercedes, Nissan, etc. And on top of that, it's one of the ticks in your career. If you've won Bathurst, Craig Lowndes has done it 7 times, as we said. If you've done that, you are up there with the greats. It is one of those to be able to say, yes, I did it, I've done it, I was there. For UK touring car fans, I think because of the super touring connection and also the fact that some of our biggest British touring car champions have gone over and had a go at Muller, Cleland, Giovanardi, to mention just a few, even Andy Prio a few years ago with Matthias Ekstrom went over, and they were all having a go at this. I think it's just one of those races that, for touring car fans, you've got to be able to say, yes, I've watched it, I've experienced it, I've enjoyed it, and it's just great fun to watch. I don't watch supercar racing full time myself, I must admit, like as you said yourself, Lester. We've lost it on Motorsport TV in the UK, which is a shame. But it has been good close racing, like the BTCC as well. So it's a championship well worth watching when you can catch it, if you can find a way to catch it. But yeah, Bathurst, definitely one of the favourites. I'll be honest, I'd love to see an endurance race back in the UK, like we used to have back in Group A and in the 80s myself. My own personal thought on that, very quickly, is that the Jack Sears Cup should be an endurance cup, or part of the 60th anniversary repeat endurance race like we had earlier this year. But I'd love to see our guys in the UK teaming up, two drivers in a car, racing hard as the Australians do it, and show they do it really well.
Certainly, yeah. You raised some good points there, and especially I think we have our big topic, our big debate, maybe for next week's show. Would potentially TCR reintroduce endurance touring cars to the UK?
It could be an interesting one, I must admit. I wouldn't mind seeing it, and it's something that does happen.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, Cadwell, there you go. So a TCR UK endurance race at Cadwell Park.
At night.
Care of, at night.
Reverse.
And you'll have a 2-car entry with Stuart Richards Racing, with me shouting at Jake Hill and Lewis Kent on the pit wall. How this is going to work, I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to get 2 more drivers for the other car, of course. This has potential. I'm just leaving that there. This has potential.
Yeah, and if it was anything like the idea that we were chatting about off-air, involving, what was it, touring car Lego, was it, guys? I forgot already.
The Lego Touring Car Championship is just going to involve stop motion, no racing action whatsoever. After about 30 years, we finally got the race completed.
If somebody has, let's say, a few weeks to spare of their life,
is Nick Park still around from Ardman? He'll be good for that.
Well,
good idea.
I know one. Yeah, I know one guy who used to do exactly this type of stop motion stuff of like fantasy / classic racing and recreating them. How about this? Is an idea that Stuart had, I think it was. It definitely wasn't my idea. But what about?
It was a good idea. That's why it's mine.
If you say so. But what about potentially if somebody and this would. I don't know, because of the amount of time it would probably take someone to do it, but recreating classic touring car moments in history as a stop motion sort of video with Lego.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I was going to say, Phil, did you hear about why that Lego driver was disqualified?
No, I've missed that one. Why was the Lego driver disqualified?
He was blocking.
Oh, go home. It's time to go.
I think we've had it tonight, guys. It's Stuart's exhausted, obviously.
Now we're all out of dog puns and various things. It's
got barking mad.
Oh God!
I can see repercussions of this at least throughout the week and possibly into the weekend. My fear is TCR UK drivers will be walking up to me on Sunday. "Hi Phil, how are the dogs?" "Yeah, they're fine."
Well, funny you should say that, because Andreas Bachmann's tuned in, or he was anyway, until we all started going crazy, talking about Lego touring cars and dogs snoring loudly. But hello anyway, Andres, if you're still tuned in. Hello as well to TCR UK commentator Andy McEwen, who also tuned in, I'd imagine, for a short time while he thought we were talking about him. Why not? Hey, Craig McAllister, big hello if you're just tuned in to Touring Car Talk or Motorsport Radio for the first time ever. Also to Paul Owen, James Toner, Lewis Benny, Blake Gibbons, regular listener to the show, Stuart Lyons we had on also as well, we had tuned in earlier. And also a big thank you to Mark James, the TCR UK media coordinator as well, for coming on and giving us half an hour of his evening to tell us and various cryptic things about what may or may not be going on in TCR UK. But what we can definitely tell you is next year will be bigger and better. It's about the journey, folks, not the destination. Thank you very much for tuning in. And don't forget, you can download this show, God forbid, So, I mean, why don't you download the show and take it with you? Wherever you're going, maybe take it on your morning commute. You can download it as an audio podcast or a visual podcast. Don't watch it, though, if you're in the car. Or you can just tune in to us again on our next Touring Car show, which might be next week, reviewing what happened at the weekend.
So I dare say we'll be back next week if they let us.
I'm not doing out else, to be honest.
You're not? Okay, that's fine. So Leicester's good. Stuart, I think you're good for a fourth week, aren't you?
I'll think of some more jokes. Don't worry.
Okay, that's fine. Maybe even some Lego diorama. We'll be back next week. I dare say we'll be talking about how TCR UK, the finale, turned out at Donington Park. I understand as well there's a DTM finale taking place. We might just have to have a look at that.
Is that still going?
See how is it still going? Are you honestly asking? Very quickly, two English guys, Paul di Resta, Gary Paffett, one of those could be champion. Let's just put that out there. We'll have a chat about the DTM finale. I'm sure we'll find a way to squeeze that in as well. And anything else touring car that related, because between now and next week, heaven knows what news will come our way.
Exactly. And if any, just between myself and you, if you're a team owner in BTCC or TCR, or you're thinking about doing something involving breaking news, and you want to drop us a line, give us a little top tip, maybe we can break on the show, maybe. Let us know. Give us you can send, maybe you can send Phil a little private message on the old internets there, or you can just email in total confidence. It's hello@motorsport.radio. That's our web address, motorsport.radio. Just before we go, Phil and Stuart both write for The Checkered Flag, and Phil, tell us how people can keep in touch with you.
So if you want to follow me, with no updates whatsoever about the two snoring dogs that are family pets, if they're really lucky by the end of this week.
I think they're going to have their own Facebook account.
No. I don't need that encouragement. I'm really hoping
and they will troll you.
Because she doesn't need that encouragement either. So yes, if you want to find me talking about all manner of things touring cars, BTCC, TCR around the world, then you can find me on Twitter at Phil_Kinch, and also at TCR Talk blog. Not only there, you can also find me on Facebook, where I run several groups, including the official TCR Talk group, the TCR UK fans group, and also recently I've been added as an admin on the BTCC fan zone as well. So you can find me there, sharing all manner of news and things. And I'm also at the Checkered Flag covering World Rallycross for the last two events of this season as well.
Fantastic stuff. And how can we stalk you, Stuart?
Sweet and simple. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at TCF Stuart. First four letters are all capitalised, and as Phil says, I'm also on the Checkered Flag, and you can find all my articles there. British Touring Cars and Renault Clio Cup.
All right, fantastic stuff. Before we go, thank you very much once again, and I've already said this, but thank you very much for tuning in to Touring Car Talk. We do definitely appreciate it. Check out the Motorsport Awards at motorsportawards.com or motorsport.radio/awards to make your nomination as to who you think should win an official Motorsports Award. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll hopefully do it all again with maybe some weird combinations of touring car Lego historic classic races again next week. Thank you and good night.
Motorsport Radio.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Ray from the Kawasaki Racing Team.
Hi, this is Nick Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Jamie Chadwick.
Hey everyone, I'm Bradley Smith.
Hi, I'm Joanne Zacco.
Hi, I'm Bradley Wright.
Hi, I'm Seb Morris.
Hi, I'm Dan Lingford from Honda Racing, British Superbike team, and this is Motorsport Radio.